Someone's going to go for two and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number one. Shocker. Iron.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go. Overtime, presented by Perfection One. My name is John Bruce, along with Shayne Combs, welcoming you into episode 77 of the show. I believe this might be the 10th episode of the season, maybe 11. Either way, it's been a good time so far, getting closer to the playoffs. We had a huge weekend news in the Southeast District, so the show's going to be a little bit different this week, and we may not really touch on part of that big time news, but you've probably seen it all over. So, Shayne, how was this week for you?
Busy, but I really enjoyed it. I know you were busy as
Mhm.
well, and I enjoyed your coverage, following your updates. You do a great job. And then I just the volleyball. I knew I was really excited about that going in. It certainly didn't disappoint. We have a little bit more coming up this week. And then you throw in the Friday night the game with Carson on the SOSA there with Huntington Piketon. Probably as good a football game as
Mhm.
we've had all year. And we thought it would be. That's why we were there. And
Mhm.
then now we have another one picked out here in week 11 that we think is going to be really good.
Yeah, it should be a fun week. I was at 13 different games this week. One of them I was only there for a half, which was football on Friday because coming in and doing the coaches call-in show. If you haven't watched the coaches call-in show, which based off of our numbers, a lot of you have not, check it out. Especially this week's. If you're wondering how a team's going to deal with going into the bye week, uh, Coach Woodard, Coach Woodward from Wheelersburg, Coach Hall from Jackson, both discussed it a little bit in theirs. The timestamps are in there on the Coaches Call-In show. I thought they were very good. The Wheelersburg answer I thought was phenomenal, and Coach Hall is fantastic every week on there. We may have been able to talk to Coach Hoops if we knew what was going to happen, if that we knew that they were going to get a bye, but that was still up in the air until Saturday morning. So it was a good episode. It was Nick Barrows and Jeff Miller. I figured it out back there. I was producing the show really well, and I don't know. I think when Coach Beeler came on though, I missed pressing a button, so it was kind of
You guys
iffy
got
at
it
first.
figured out.
Yeah,
It
so
was a good show the other night. It
mm,
was. I enjoyed each coach.
yeah, so that was one of the reasons I didn't go out to any of the other games because I was like, I got to make sure this thing works. And then so we go on at 9:35. It was about 9:28 is when I figured it out. So, yeah, it was very fun. Super fun. I mean, not stressful at all when I got in here at 8 to try to make things work. But um, as we've mentioned, the show's going to be a little bit different. We are going to kind of work back to front on the episode this week. Uh, Normally, we go our discussion and our headlines, and then we go into football, soccer, volleyball, cross country golf, however that order. This week, our headlines are going to be at the end. We're going to talk about it, what we're going to talk about at the end, and then we're going to start with cross country, then go to volleyball, soccer, then football, because football is going to kind of tie into the big topic of the week. But the big topic, one of the big topics of the week, NIL. That's what we're going to talk about at the end of this. At the end of the show, it's a topic that a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on, and that's part of the reason why we're going to go a little deeper into it. Normally, our discussion at the beginning is about 5 to 10 minutes. This one I think may take a little bit longer, but thankfully the OHSA sent out like kind of their referendum of what was going to happen or what the schools were going to vote on. So we spent a long time, pretty much our lunch hour a couple days ago, trying to decide like how we're going to talk about this, and they kind of fixed it for us, which was nice.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. It's something I've tried to really put some thought into. I've always tried to pride myself in not being the old guy of telling the kids get off my lawn type of thing. And but there's a lot there, and there's a lot of change coming, and there's a lot of differences. And um, yeah, I look forward to that segment of the show. You'll definitely want to check that out. I think our discussion will be really thorough and really good. At least you may not agree with everything, but at least it'll generate some thoughts and discussion, which is what we always try to do on here.
Yeah, so, it could have been but it could have been kinda wild. I was like, "Man, I'm gonna say some wild stuff," and then the HSA comes out with, like, "Hey, this is what we're voting on." Who knows if it'll pass, but it was kind of a relief that I didn't have to break out my Skip Bayless or Stephen A. of
Yeah.
like now I can just be boring and kind of just say what there what is out there. But that's going to kind of swing us to where we're going to start today. We're going to start with cross country. Cross country, getting ready for the state meet this coming week at Fortress Obits in Obits, up around the Columbus area. It's a beautiful facility. They do a great job with the state cross country meet, and it's nuts. Like if you haven't been there, they've got different video boards up that show you where every runner is in the race, what the team standings are. It's a very cool meet to be at, and there's people everywhere. You see the coaches running and coaching throughout the meet. It's just a really cool atmosphere. And then the coolest thing is it's a one-sided stadium, so you see the runners coming in. They come in and out a couple of different times, but when they come around the last turn, coming down for to see who's going to come in to be the state champion or to do their final run in, the whole crowd gets into it, even if it's not their runner, which is really cool because that's just kind of the atmosphere that it is in general of what cross country and runners in general are. It's just they're a really good community, and that's what makes it a really special event.
Yeah, when you talk to cross country people, they'll tell you that.
Mm,
They'll tell you that, the competition's really elite when it comes to the top. But it's a sport where you're very competitive with yourself. You'll constantly hear people talk about the PR,
mhm,
their personal best type
yeah,
thing record. And there's a sportsmanship and kind of I think it's probably a respect for one another. I
mhm.
think people that do it understand how hard it is. So there's always a respect of someone who, whatever level you are, just giving everything you have and trying to go out and run your best time.
Yeah, respect is a great way to say because it is hard. I know we're big time runners. You were a runner. You ran in
Right.
school. I did not.
Yeah.
I my running was conditioning and then in the sport. So I have a ton of respect for cross country and especially what those kids can do and that whole community.
So that'd
So
be what, about 34 years and probably about
you don't have to mention that second part.
155 to 160 pounds ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's whatever. I mean, we're not getting back into
Hey,
it,
real
so
quick, I'm gonna go clear off it.
yeah,
You want to know how far like Union cross country's come because we know how good it is now.
yeah,
My freshman year, what got me into running was Uniota had never won an all sports banner. Think about that after
yeah,
the way the run went,
yeah,
and because they couldn't finish cross country race. So like they were putting groups together and recruiting people. Like, will you go out and just finish the race so we can get some?
yeah,
And that gives you an idea of just a generation ago of the different dynamic of the SVC
mhm,
and where it was then compared to now. And that's kind of a great illustration because it's not just the SVC. You see the SOC trying to sort these divisions
yeah,
out, and the TVC's kind of done a decent job of it. And you hear the OVC teams moving to the mid-state league. You don't even recognize it anymore.
right,
So I share that because I think it does just show you how quickly things can
mhm,
change 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. So all these decisions sometimes that we talk about on here, you never know what it's going to
mhm,
impact, our local
right.
athletic scene in years to come.
Yeah, it's all kinds of stuff that is changing, but moving back into that state meet, we had a lot of qualifiers, including like we've mentioned her before, and I think it was talked about last week, but Sophia Solosi
Yes.
from Athens is just unreal. Like fastest time in the state so far this year. I know regardless of division as well, just an unreal runner from Athens. So uh, runners like that are ones that you're going to want to look for possible state champions coming up. But Shayne's going to talk about a lot of the kids that did qualify across the region.
Well, since you mentioned that, let's start right there. That young lady was the individual champion in D2 girls, which allowed Athens to be the runner-up team.
Mhm.
So they're going to be able to go as a group in that same race. Uniota Cameron Walker, seventh place to advance. And then over on the D2 boys side, the Chillicothe boys team's been really good
Mhm.
this year. They had a third place finish and they're going to go on. That's on the D2 side. Now, D1, we don't have a ton of representation. I saw where Lancaster and Tays Valley are going to have some
Hmm.
representation. Now, as you get into D3 and D4, you get more and more representation from our entire coverage area. The D3 side, Fairfield Union, outstanding
Hmm.
program on the boys and girls side. On the girls side, the team advances. And then on the boys side, let's see, Fairfield Union third, Uniota fourth, so
Hmm.
they'll both advance. And that Fairfield Union was led by the third place individual, Connor Runkle, and Uniota's Caleb Kaplinger was seventh overall. So those two programs will head. And then Division Four, here's another local one we've highlighted. Adina's Vanessa Conley was fourth place. I believe that's her third straight
Hmm.
appearance now to the state level. And on the Division Four side, Braden Mantell from South Webster was the fourth place. Fisher Catholic was the boys' winner there as a team. But again, that young man from South Webster will go. So again, very well might have missed someone. Those are the ones I was trying to
Yeah.
break down as I went through and that I wanted to highlight. But that becomes, when you think about it, from district to regional, now regional to state, that becomes a pretty elite list. I mean, if you're on
Yeah.
that list, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it shortens up for a good bit, especially when it goes to the teams, and when those teams get a chance to participate at the state meet. You, especially if you're a younger team, you can kind of see like what you need to do to get better throughout, and what you need to do to get to that next level, and that's why you've seen Union in the past, but Athens and Fairfield Union the last few years have really come along. I know White Oak had an elite runner
Yes.
over the last few years as well. So I mean, it's you've seen some really elite runners get there from our area, and it's going to be interesting to follow this week. At the state meet, I believe it's you said it's four divisions now, which is more than it's ever been. So should be really fun. We've talked about some of these kids Um, throughout the season, and it's going to be exciting to follow along, see how they do on Saturday at that state meet.
We talked about it last week about the experience of getting there and taking it in and understanding what it's about. You'll hear that come up in some other sports on tonight's show.
Mhm.
Um, I think that applies here. For you mentioned it, a younger team get it's such an event.
Yeah.
There's so many people, and in these big races, understanding how to run that first half mile is so important. It's so crowded, there's just it's so tight getting off the start and getting out into the race and getting out and onto the court.
Hmm.
And it's impossible to describe. I would miserably fail if I tried to. But again, it's something that as a runner you almost have to just experience at one time because there's no start over, right?
Hmm.
Once you like, oh my goodness, I just cost myself probably 15, 20 spots just on how I
Hmm.
ended up running the first, say, quarter mile of the
Hmm.
whole race. That's something you take to your workouts in the off
Yeah.
season and you bring back. So the experience part that's real.
Yeah. It's big time, and you can see where some schools have made a big time difference when they've gotten there. Some schools will peak too early as well. So sometimes, and then I think it was. I go back to Marlington a few years ago was one that I believe didn't win their region, and then they go in and win the state, and kind of. I think they were expected to be like a top five team, but end up being a top one team, and have really been outstanding in that like Division 2 area, and they were one that like they timed their stuff out perfectly to peak at the exact right level. And sometimes you see kids that have ran so well throughout the year, their times fall down because maybe they try to go out too quick, or maybe they don't time their kick right because somebody else has been prepping for that as well. So uh, definitely is an interesting thing to go watch at some point. And I look forward to seeing how these kids do this week as well. So, looking forward to that. Good luck to all of our teams this week in cross country. But let's jump over to volleyball. So, Shane, we had a big week. You were at uh, three really good matches, one unreal match on throughout the week. It was the Gaia and Logan Elm match. When me and Derek were watching it while we were covering soccer. We're watching it on our phones, and it was just we thought it was over in three. It was not over in three, and then then it looked like it was over in the fifth, and Gaia made another run and just were outstanding. But uh, we had 6 different divisions of schools that we cover that we're going to talk about a little bit. Shayne, so if you want to go over, let's go over Division 4 first because that's where you were at. If you want to talk about those games, and then we'll kind of not going to fully bounce around, but we'll bounce around a little bit. So we're going to start with Division 4 up at Logan.
Well, yeah, we had the semifinals, but we knew it was going to be a really elite field, and it was. I mean, Circleville had come in, and we talked about Circleville throughout. That they probably had as high a ceiling as anyone. They had trouble finding themselves maybe early in the year. Maybe they weren't 100% healthy, and then they were tweaking their rotation here or there, and they've just really have ended up finding something that's worked for them, and they win their first district volleyball title in 41 years, and just terrific. Allie Thornsley's just one of the real elite players. If you weren't with us the other day, I was explaining she's one of these kids, John, that like I know we talk about milestones all the time, but she's just one of these kids that like whatever she's asked to do, she might end up being like, if not the best, one of the
Mhm.
best in the whole coverage area at that. If she was a libero, she'd have 2,000 digs. If she was a hitter all the time, she'd have well over 1,000 kills. If she was a setter all the way through, she'd have over 2,500 a set. I mean, she's just really, really good. And she quarterbacks it all. And then you get Addison Edgington and Drew Hoskin opposite of each other. And then they just fill in a lot of steady pieces. I thought Kayla Fleck and Maddie Blakeman were just really, really good. Emily Edgington at the net was really good. Kaylee West, as an all around player, stepped in and did some setting to allow Thornsley to hit a little bit. Claire Davis, she'll wear the different collar jersey, and they use her in different ways as a libero, and she passes. I thought Jocelyn McLaughlin came in and was really really elite with the serve. She's
Mhm.
had kind of a risk reward serve throughout the year, and the risk was worth it.
Mhm.
In that semifinal, she flipped the match at times. So they were just really really good. They kind of overwhelmed Waverly a little bit, but I was real impressed with Waverly this year. I thought they took a giant step forward. Hats off to Sidney Johnson. That career is awesome,
Outstanding.
unbelievable, and it's really neat to see what Coach Henshaw has been able to do with this group of seniors come up. Now she's has some underclassmen, and Waverly's just going to kind of keep reloading and going. I think this Waverly program's here to stay. You talk about experience, them getting over that Warren uh,
Mm.
hump this year, getting to that district stage, just ran into a really, really good Circleville team. And then the other match that led, that's the instant classic one. If you wanted to see an incredible volleyball match, go back and watch the Gallia Academy, Logan Elm. These two schools now inside of about 12, 13 months have played two 5-set thrillers. That's who knocked Gallia out last
Mm.
year when Gallia won 18 games, and then now they come back this year and they go at it again. This Logan Elm team, 9 seniors. Obviously Claire King, phenomenal, but 9 seniors. And I said all year long I trusted them the most
Mhm.
because they didn't have nearly the high ceiling that a Gallia or Circleville had. They had the highest floor. I
Yeah.
knew what I was going to get with them every time I watched them. They were going to be well coached. They were going to be efficient. They were going to play hard. They were going to, I mean, now it wasn't always about them losing. Sometimes they just got beat. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But like they were going to go out and play. So that's why I always talked about them having a high floor. And give this Gallia Academy team a lot of credit because it's young. I made the comment at the end of the match the other day when Circleville won the championship. Usually this is the part of the match where we go down through and highlight the seniors of the losing team. But that didn't take very long with Gallia Academy because they don't have them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So here's a team that came in 24-0, finished 24-1. And the moment got him a little bit. If I'm being honest, the moment got him a little bit, and they'll grow from it.
Mhm.
Circleville's really good. What was really fun, John, in that final was Circleville and Gallia going back and forth. You heard me mention these names all year long with Barnes and Clark and Frazier and Saunders, and even Eachus defensively
Mhm.
there, and Grayson Clark spreading that ball around. When the ball got live and the ball got into the volley, it was really good volleyball the other day. You saw two teams really elite at the net. They're so used to being the bigger team, the more powerful team. Well, the other day I thought that offset one another a little bit. And the game came down to some small details,
Mhm.
and that's where Circleville's experience kind of took the thing over. Unofficially, in my notes, I think I had Guy Academy miss 12 serves the other day. They missed 7 of them in the second set. You just can't do that
Yeah.
at that level. They know that. And again, it's a fine line because you're trying to serve tough, you're trying to go risk reward, but they ended up getting 4 or 5 different freshmen their feet wet at that stage. Chloe Bennett as a libero comes back. Petro as a passer comes back. They have, I mean, they have the entire roster coming back, and there's no doubt in my mind they'll be right back there. You know what I mean? Like they're going to return everybody. They're gonna take this experience. Sometimes what happens, tell me if you agree here. Sometimes what happens is when you've seen kids perform at a certain level, they reach a stage where maybe they can't control the heart rate a little bit. They can't go, like I've coached those pitchers before where inside practice over the winter, and they throw a lot of strikes. All of a sudden, you get them out there, first scrimmage, opening night, big game in the tournament. Every level, you start to get to a level where you just can't get your nerves under control to just perform at your ability. And there's no way to go through that other than to go through
Right.
that. Does that make sense? So like there's no doubt in my mind the Gallia Academy team will respond from this and be even better. But look, this Circleville team, they're elite. They're elite. They when they serve it the way they did in that district tournament, there's going to be very, very few teams that they don't have a chance against at the net because again, they have a laundry list of just of weapons that they can go to. And so congratulations to Circleville. They're your Division 4 champion.
But you mentioned them throughout the year of having that highest ceiling, and at the time they had 4 or 5 losses. But if you go back through those losses, I mean, it's Bloom Carroll, who's one of the best teams in the state. It's Logan Elm, who we've seen throughout the year, is a very good team. New Lexington, who you're going to talk about in a second, Division 5. Olentangy Liberty, a Division 1 school. Uh, let me
Bloom
find.
Carroll beat the Sells in 5 the other day to win the district
I mean,
championship
so,
in
and
Division 3, by the way.
and then Bishop Hartley, who's outstanding as well. So I mean, they go out and play, and also Meadowbrook, who
Yeah,
we know is
really
outstanding.
good.
So
Really good.
it's they went out and they scheduled tough, and Meadowbrook is a team that they could see in a regional final if they beat London, but and that's a Meadowbrook team that we've seen for years over in that London, or not London, the Logan district or regional. It's just they prepped themselves for this, and then by about midway through the season, it clicked, and they've been outstanding throughout since
They
then.
they have they've made just a few little tweaks in the rotation, and you if you followed our volleyball coverage, the number one thing I love about teams like Circleville is they never have a rotation where you're sitting there watching, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can get out of this rotation. They're never going to be in that because they're going to always have one elite, usually two really legitimate options at the net.
Mhm.
They so far they probably taken the floor. There's not going to be very many times shy of the state tournament they take the floor where they're not going to have the best player, or at least real close to having the best player on the floor. And then as long as they serve receive it okay, that's still the thing that when I talk about their really high ceiling and then their floor, it's still the service game. But to their credit in the district, they served it tough. They avoided the mistakes. They didn't have a lot of mistakes over the what would have been the 6 sets that they played at the district level. And for the most part, they served received it well enough to go on the attack.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference for a team like Circleville. So congratulations to Circleville winning that, really a gauntlet in Division 4. But moving on, where we're going to be on Wednesday night, or Thursday night, you can see down below. There's a lot more stuff in the ticker this
Is it
week.
Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. So, a lot more stuff in the ticker this week because I threw all the district finals in there as well. So, but at the end of the ticker, you're going to see on Thursday, we've got a pair of games that we're going to be at for Division 5 over at Logan, and it's going to feature 3 different district winners, which was Division 5. If you want to go over those.
Yeah, just kind of what we expected. We ended up getting the 6 teams to the final that we expected. We knew that there'd be a couple real tight semifinal games there. Southeastern Chesapeake match was intriguing. Westfall Alexander, we talked about that. Zane Trace North Adams. But when everything settled, we got pretty much what we thought we would get.
Mhm.
And then Adina just locks in. They win their 39th district title, straight sets over Southeastern. I thought that was just a really mature. Had a chance to watch that back. Just a real mature, just real focused performance.
Mhm.
And
And then
then,
also, for Coach Smith, that's her 33rd
yes,
district. I mean, that's just, I mean, 39 is crazy enough, but then you have the one coach with 33. Outstanding program.
unbelievable. And obviously they're led by the outstanding Katie Burns there in the middle. And so those first three rotations across, you have just it's so difficult to get off the stop. And then we've mentioned congratulations Timmy Dalton
Yes.
1,000
Diggs.
career dig, just a junior,
Mhm.
and then obviously joined back there with J.C. Smith. You've heard me say throughout the year it's kind of like that double libero attack, and then they're getting more and more balance when needed. Remember, balance isn't always about the total number of kills. It's more about efficiency. It's more
Mhm.
about when it comes time to make a play defensively at the net, when it comes time to get a swing at the net, can you avoid the errors? Can you score some points for your team? And and I just thought that was real complete by Adina the other day. And then you moved to the second match. Zane Trace did get one set there in set two, but New Lex, I tell you, you talk about a team from last year. You watched them and you thought, okay, this team's really good. They might be a year away, and here we are a year later, and
Yeah.
they're really good. I mean, this Division 5 regional we're coming up on, we talked a lot about the Division 4. Let's not sell the Division 5 short. I mean, like this is a who's who that we're getting ready to cover this week at Logan, because then in the nightcap you had Wheelersburg beat Alexander, the TVC Ohio champion, and so now you're going to have a Dina match up with Belmont Union local, and you're going to get New Lex and Wheelersburg there in the second match, and both could be really really good. I'm in my early prep learning a little bit about Union local, but I can tell you right away that the New Lex and Wheelersburg matchup offers some really really unique matchups in the middle. New Lex is really good in the middle. Where obviously Wheelersburg's outstanding at setter, does a good job of reading the block and moving the ball
Mhm.
around, and Chamberlain. So she's going to try to get Mullins and company some free nets and open opportunities. Wheelersburg defense will be really really vital there in their middles, as well as Gleam and company there in the back. So that's one I'm looking forward to dive into in my preparation this week. But yeah, we've talked a lot about four. Let's not sell this Division
Well,
5 short. That could be a lot of fun.
yeah, should be a really fun, um, couple nights. Well, at least couple games up there at Logan. We'll kind of see where we go from there because we don't want to guarantee that we're going to be there if there's not going to be a Southeast team from there. But I think we've got a good chance.
Hey, and
Uh,
for the record,
yeah.
I forgot to mention this in D4, so hopefully they didn't like fast forward once we got off their division. I went to bat on our hit of the week for volleyball, and I was overruled. But the other day, Sadie Binkley and Kiki
Ingram.
Ingram, my vote was for them. The play they made, it was Binkley that went into the bench. It was like
Oh,
the Academy
yeah.
ended up winning the point. But it was in the fifth set. I mean,
Mhm.
the entire season on the line, and Sadie Binkley, the senior libero of Logan Elm, goes diving into her bench and pops it up, and then Ingram follows her up and makes a play clear from the bench, angling the ball back to put it back in play. And I'll be honest, on the air, I'm not rooting for anybody. I just turned fan for a second.
Mhm.
I think that's when I said that if man, if you didn't appreciate that, you don't like sports.
Yeah.
I mean, just turn your stream off. You don't
Right.
even like it. I mean, it so that should be the hit of the week, in my opinion, was the Sadie
I
Binkley to the bench.
we may find a way to we
At
may
least for
find
the
it
code.
we may find a way to clip that a little bit because I can't put it in here because I'm like I talked about how I had contacted Dewey and Dewey was like trying to fix everything. He's like, "Where's this? Where's this? Where's this?" I'm
Yeah,
like, "I don't
yeah.
know, dude. I'm trying to do this without calling you every week." And um,
So I should have said that on the Division 4 coverage. Hopefully they're still
we'll
listening, but
we'll
that certainly
we'll
needs to
find
be
a way to
done.
clip
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And but yeah, me and Derek were watching that. I remember that play now that you mentioned it because it was just such a high level play, and it's just
And
you know,
Gallia went on to win the point. It
yeah,
was the
that's
14th point, but it was just it was just an incredible sequence with what was on the line
yeah.
to make that play.
Yeah, so we'll make a note for that. So it was an outstanding play for sure. But moving on, we've got a chance for something really cool to happen in the SOC. Um, the SOC 3.
I
The
can't remember which one
yeah,
we're gonna
it's
go into, but
SOC big, in Division 6. So if you want to go over Division 6.
yeah, really, really neat opportunity. You're right. South Webster and Valley both captured district championships in the D6 bracket. South Webster beats Lynchburg Clay. Give Clay a lot of credit. They won that third set to kind of stretch the match out. But South Webster, as I've said, I think they're really, really good. I think they're really complete. They too really don't have a hole in their 6 spots of the rotation. So they're always going to be someone who can play at an elite level. And then Valley beats Eastern Pike in 3 and controlled the match throughout. And John, if you remember when we had Valley early this year, I'd been doing a lot of prep and I was really impressed with them. Well, then in fairness to them, the time I got to watch them in person, they're playing Wheelersburg.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wheelersburg has a way of maybe not making you uh,
look the
look as
best.
good or get in rhythm or so forth. But when I left there that night, I thought to myself, hang on, like Valley and South Webster in 6, if they go opposite of each other, they've got a great opportunity. Well, then I look deeper at the bracket, and it happens to be the year where the 2 Southeast teams line up. So now they not only win a district championship, they not only make the Sweet 16, where they play each other. So it just goes back to our talk last week, too, by the way. Wouldn't it be nice if Southeast people didn't have to go to Zanesville to
Right.
watch it? But that's where they play. And so obviously, someone from the SOC is going to play in the Elite Eight, has a
Mhm.
chance to go to the Final Four. They'll play on Saturday. So they'll play early in the week, Wednesday, I believe it is. And then they play Saturday, Newark Catholic Shenandoah winner on
Mhm.
Saturday. So I guess this is probably a good time to say, Dewey and I were talking about this the other day. We're going to Logan. We're going to have the 2D5 semifinals we mentioned earlier. Adena,
Mhm.
Union Local, Wheelersburg, New Lex. If you really look at our area, if Adena and or Wheelersburg would win, we'll be back at Logan to cover that championship on Saturday. If for some reason those 2 teams would lose, we haven't ruled out maybe heading over to Zanesville because you'll automatically have South Webster or Valley in that final there. And then, as we're going to discuss in Division 7, there's an outside chance you could have a coverage team in the Division 7 championship. Well,
Would be really good for our area to be able to highlight those teams. So yeah, as you mentioned, it was you know what South Webster's been able to do over the last forever anyway. But I'll talk about it a little bit during you know the boys soccer talk, but the Claxons used to be one of the better coaching couples there is. I mean, they both win a district championship on the same day for the 3rd straight year. And then, I mean, Corey's been outstanding for a long time, but Darby with 7th Street now
but
with
it
that.
really is
Yeah.
remarkable. And remember, we talked about this with Miami Trace, and I talked about it with Circleville. I talked about here's another volleyball team that has Avery and Addie Claxon opposite each other.
Mhm.
So they always have a go-to. But here's the big thing I've seen come on from last year's their middle. Um, Kennedy Hamilton, and she's just a junior. She has really come on in the middle to give them some offense and compete a little bit in the middle. And, it's just been a lot of fun to watch because I mean, obviously Sydney Kessler is a setter is going to do a great job, and she's going to use the middle. She's going to kick it outside, but then it offers um, South Webster a chance to be really good defensively, really good in serve receive. They're very clever on how they move their kids around
Mhm.
in each rotation. And so far, schools have really had trouble serving the ball away from Claxon when she's back there. She takes a lot of first balls. Well, obviously that's going to be pretty good for the Jeeps, right?
Right.
Because there's a good chance the pass is going to be on target. So just been real. Even Chloe Milligan there, the Milligan opposite of Hamilton. I just think their middles have been really good. So they're a team they're a team that I think is well prepared to go and play well at that level. And then over on the other side, when I pull up Valley, I had the chance to see him in person the one time, and again, I know that particular night they had a lot of trouble um, getting Chrisman involved. Wheelersburg was really, really good at just coming at them. But I thought Maya Williams, I enjoyed her interview the other day
Mhm.
on SOSA. She's a real dynamic. Caitlin Queens, again, I mentioned Thornsley earlier. This is a bigger setter that can do a lot of different things. She can defend the net. She can play the ball tight to the net, still get it out to her hitters. Um, they too have some youth, and so it'll be interesting to see how they handle it on that stage. But again, I look down through the roster, not really that old.
Right.
So you get the experience from it. Maybe it doesn't happen this year. Before you know it, you're right back there next year, and you're that much more prepared.
Right. And then speaking of schools that are prepared, one these were two outstanding matches on Saturday at Southeastern, Division 7, with Notre Dame and Eastern winning.
Well, they obviously mirrored each other. You had and you can speak to this, down 0-2, and that's what makes volleyball so unique. You know what I mean? You're down 0-2, but it's not a total score. You might get outscored by 2 or 3 and then outscored by 4 or 5. Well, you don't go into the third set down, 6, 7, 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start over. And once you win that third set, it was similar to the Division 4 I described earlier when Gallia comes all the way back from down 0-2 against Logan Elm. You could sense Logan Elm felt like they had to win that in that third set. You could see it in their coaches and the way they use timeout. Same way here, I'm sure. You know, especially in that match with Western Notre Dame.
Hmm.
Maybe not as much in Eastern Meg Southern where it's a little bit more of a coin flip,
Yeah.
but like when when that underdog, for lack of a better term, jumps out to the 1-0 advantage and then the 2-0 advantage, well now all of a sudden you feel like, man, we need to finish them off or we're going to wake the giant. And once Notre Dame comes back, I mean, you look there, what, 25-14, 25-13,
Mm,
they start to get control
yeah.
of it. And then the fifth set is a little tighter. But no, and keep in mind, look, that both are rivalries. So
Yeah.
Notre Dame Western, and then you get the Eastern Meg Racing Southern. That TVC hockey always had that
Oh, it
I
was
mean,
awesome.
and
It was awesome.
they're one, that's a conference, John, that their enrollment fits, and it's really made for some competitive volleyball, competitive
Mhm.
basketball, competitive baseball. Um, that's just exciting to see them go round 3 and they go all the way to what 15-10 to
Mhm.
decide a winner.
Yeah, it was a couple of outstanding matches. I'll start with Notre Dame and Western. Western jumped out to the 2-0 lead, as you mentioned, Shane. But Addie Brewster, Paisley Dobbins was really good. Brewster is one of the better all around players that we've had. We've highlighted
Oh
her a
yeah.
couple different times for all of her different achievements throughout the year. Bailey Eisen was really good. But man, you mentioned once Notre Dame got out in front, you could see that they didn't look super confident in that second set, as Western's starting to really impose their own will. They had a big, big crowd, loud crowd. It was a really cool environment to see. And but once Notre Dame and Macy Ford talked about this a little bit on in our interview of like, hey, we've done a lot of winning. Like they don't get shit like they don't get shaken up. So where they've done
Experience.
yeah, a lot of experience. You win in different sports. You play big games throughout the year. And ultimately, you're not gonna, down 2-0. Okay, well, as you mentioned, Shane, you're not playing total points, so it doesn't matter. You're down 2-0. Okay, we gotta win 3. We can't lose 3. So you can't lose 3 in the first 2 sets. Um, so once it resets every time, Notre Dame did a great job of that. Macy Ford was awesome, big time hitting throughout. Jason Bryant, Lainey Strickland was really good in the middle. She really, you could tell been around a lot of winning volleyball because just she's kind of directing things out front, which you don't see a lot out of the middle. Really impressed with what she was able to do. Ryan Purcell, Lindsay Schaefer, really good setters, and defensively Bella Rush. I think it's Kaylee Oger, but she was really good as well. So they were, just a really outstanding team throughout for Notre Dame. Was impressed with what they were able to do. And then, as you mentioned, that rivalry in that second game was fun. It was a really it was a big time crowd for as far as those schools had to come. It was 90 minutes. Not the biggest communities either, but man, they did a good job of filling up that bottom level at Southeastern. I would say about 70% full
Yeah.
on that bottom level, which it's a
I
bit.
mentioned that on the air
Yeah,
the other day. When you get in these venues and you look across on our camera angle, sometimes it doesn't do it
right.
justice because these gyms are so big that when you fill it up
Mhm.
60, 70%, that's a lot of people.
Right, and it can get really loud in those places, and it was pretty fun. I mean, Southern jumps out to an early start. Kirsten Rose and Allie Norris were awesome hitting throughout. Jalen Hupp, really good all around player for them. But man, Rose and Norris, I thought Lydia Smith for a freshman played really well for Southern. They get out to a 2-0 lead. Both were close, and you could kind of tell Eastern wasn't they weren't phased at all either. Mackenzie Robertson was phenomenal for them throughout. The coolest thing for Eastern, no seniors as well. So no seniors, and they're playing a rival for the third time who had just beat them to end the regular season to get a share of the TVC. So they shared the TVC, they're rivals, and you're playing for a district championship. Last year, Southern eliminated Megs, so Megs had so much that they were playing for in that one, and you could just tell, man, they were not phased at all, and really impressed with the mindset of what Eastern was able to do. Braylon Simpson took over the match in or the second half of it, really in the 4th and 5th, she was really good. They didn't really use Adiatha until the 3rd, and it felt like she gave them a spark plug, only a freshman as well. Emery Lloyd, another freshman that played well for them. Brooklyn Barkey, a junior, one of these big time, big energy players as well. But then Kinsley Well, their setter, was outstanding throughout. So it was a really fun match. We'll see where either of them go when they get to that regional to see if they can uh, make the next step. But it was very exciting to watch, and I look forward to seeing both these teams in the future as well. So we'll jump.
Well, real quick
Yeah,
on that too, I was just reading through there. 22, 25, 24, 26, 25, 21, 25, 21, 15, 10. So all day long, both teams are basically, if my math's right there, playing right around point or two.
mm,
You're playing for two
yeah,
hours and no sets ever a runaway. It's just
right.
point after point, just a grind
The
and
fourth,
intensity and just everything.
the fourth was very, very big swings because early Eastern calls a timeout because I think it was like 7-4, they're down, and then they make a run to I think it was 11-8. And then Southern takes their first time out, and then they don't take another time out. And it felt like it was starting to get away from them. And then they finally went a point. I think they're down 8 or 9, and they just make a big run to get it right back into it. And then it's right back and forth over the last few points because of how tight those teams were throughout the entire
Right.
day.
Well, and then in the next one, Notre Dame's going to play Shayne. Remember, that's the team that
Yes.
beat Adena. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that tells you right there how good they are at the Division 7 level. And then Eastern will play Central Catholic over from New Philadelphia area in Tuscarawas County there. So, um, again, they go opposite of each other. If So we haven't ruled that out on the Saturday final for Division 6 and Division 7. But as
Yeah.
long as an Adena or Wheelersburg win in Division 5, we'll be back at Logan.
Yeah.
But yeah, good luck to all those teams.
Yeah. Then moving to going back, this is where I kind of jump around. We go to our bigger schools. Um, First, we'll start in Division 3, Miami Trace.
Yeah, I'll just run through Division 3 and 2 real quick because we've covered them quite a bit on overtime, but I just wanted to, Miami Trace does get beaten 3 by Dover. I mentioned Blue Carroll earlier in that same division, beating the Cells at 5. Congratulations to them. That's your Mid-State League champion in
Mhm.
that Circleville Logan Elm division.
Mm,
But just wanted to highlight senior Lauren Ferens one more time.
mm.
Over 750 kills in the career, over 300 this season. Because remember, a lot of times we talk about milestones. Well, throughout her career, she played with so much talent. It's
Yeah.
kind of a wait your turn. Remember what I said
Mm,
earlier about opportunities? I mean, that's an incredible number in a program like that when you consider the talent she played with coming up through. So just wanted to congratulate her. And then I did want to go ahead and shout out Division 2. We don't talk Logan much on
right.
here. but they beat Briggs, the Columbus City League champion, and Franklin Heights in straight sets. And that put them into the district final where they beat Westerville South in five. They'll play Anthony Wayne on Wednesday at Westerville South. Head coach Chris Kern, that's a name that our volleyball coverage will know real,
Mm,
real well. 800 wins. If you count some of the small college, you're talking 1,000
mm.
wins, and we're real close to it. And Coach Kern there at Logan, um, I read the other night where he's talking about a real special senior night win for them earlier, and or just at the end of the regular season, and now uh, having them play the Division II level. That's some pretty elite competition they're going to start to get into there now. But congratulations to them as well.
Well, and you mentioned, Logan and their school that, we haven't covered much, especially with them being in the yeah, especially with them being in
They're in the
yeah,
OCC
the
area.
OCC, and they are a team that they will soon be in. Uh,
I've asked you
yeah,
this before. I can't, so forgive me. Is that this fall or is that one
I
more year?
believe it's one more year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to see a lot of that adjustments being made coming up
Yep.
in the next few years. Um, the more and more I hear about it, it sounds like there's more and more coming, and we'll see in some of the areas that we don't hear about as much. There's some coming as well. So, yeah, congratulations to Coach Kern and Logan, and that's just outstanding for them to win a Division II district title. So. Jumping around a little bit, we're gonna go, going backwards now as we're gonna jump over to soccer.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just ask you similar to the way you did here. Like, I guess we'll want to look back at the district, look ahead to
Yeah.
the regional. So let's just start on the district review side. Let's go boys and then girls. So let's cover district first there in terms
Okay.
of review a little bit what's going on there or what has gone on. I know you were everywhere
Yeah.
this week for the district review for the boys and girls.
Yeah, thankfully, Zane Trace had plenty for Division 5, so that's not a very far drive. And then I was able to get down to Valley for the Division 4 girls, so that's what I was able to see. Besides seeing some stuff on live stream this week as well. So shout out to JHS Media for putting the Jackson stuff up to be able to be viewed. On the boys' side, in Division 5, North Adams wins their first ever district championship, a 3-1 win over Valley on Saturday night. It was Colin Toll gets the first goal uh, for North Adams, gets a header. It was a beautiful finish. Bo Hessler with the cross into him. Uh, Jaden Reckers, who had the game winner in overtime earlier in the week for North Adams, scores a second one, puts them up 2-0. Then they go up 3-0 early in the second half, and it felt like it was going to be all Green Devils. And then Valley's Lex Logan scores immediately after to make it a 3-1 game. And then it got a little chippy late, but North Adams did a really good job of keeping their heads and earning their title. First ever district championship. I mentioned Bo Hessler, 800 winner last year in Division 3, just an outstanding athlete overall. But Dalton Pence, who's been one of the best defensive players throughout the season that I've seen, was outstanding for them as well. Preston Call, Thad Moore does a great job in goal. Jackson Baldwin, who scored the third goal for them, he was the one who set up the goal for Wreckers. Those are on that goal is on reels on Facebook. So if you want to see it, had a lot of views from the North Adams group as well, but I think a lot of people overall just an outstanding play by Baldwin. It was Baldwin to call to Wreckers for the goal, and I think that's going to be one that the people at North Adams are going to remember for a long time. So that was the Division 5, and then the other side in Division 5, South Webster just absolutely dominated their way through the district. Didn't go up a goal. They won 8-0 on Monday against Chesapeake, and then they won 4-0 against a really good Lynchburg team.
Yeah.
Um, you know, 4 different players scored. That's to me the biggest part of that. We've talked Hunter Bernard being an underappreciated player, and it was kind of, I mentioned to Coach Claxton during my interview, I'm like, I've talked about him being underappreciated, but these other guys are too because Hunter's scoring most of the goals, but you're not hearing as much about those other guys. But Benaiah Andrews, Bryson McClintock, and Carson Carell all scored for them in that game. So just showing the depth of their attack, and that's not even mentioning Seth Hughes, who's been outstanding for them all season as well in their defense. Sam Murphy, I mentioned them going through some adversity because they weren't going to have their goalie. Sam Murphy's back. Really cool interview with him after that game. Just him talking about what it meant to him to be back for his senior year. So,
Yeah.
um, I'll talk about that matchup coming up here in the review. So that was Division 5.
So then we go down, can we jump to, uh, the girls, or do you want to?
We'll go girls. We'll stay Division 5 then.
Okay.
So in girls, um, it was only one team got out. It was Fairfield. Fairfield, who for the first time in was it 10 plus years, I believe it was going back almost 15 years, they get a Vivian Hittinger goal to beat Lynchburg Clay near the end of the regular season. Had a big story on it. We talked about it here on overtime. Then they get to play Lynchburg again.
Yeah.
Henninger with a hat trick, they go up 3-0, but then Lynchburg Clay showing why they had won the 6 or 7, straight districts like they have. Dennis West is one of the best coaches in the state, just outstanding. Jacob Alexander's done a great job at Fairfield, but, Coach West's team gets 2 quick goals and then the last 6 minutes is Fairfield just defending for their lives to try to win the district. They're able to hold them off. 2nd district title in the last 3 years for Fairfield. So,
Wow.
they're gonna go, it gets really tough for them, but at the same time, awesome for them. Some really good kids there at Fairfield. I mentioned, Coach Alexander does a great job. Henninger, one of those underrated players in our area.
Now, staying at the district level, just to go ahead and tap that off, and then we can transition in.
Yeah.
What are we missing still with the district review?
We'll go to Division 4.
Okay.
On the girls' side, we'll start with the girls' side. Uh, Alexander wins their first district since 2018. They get 2 goals from Eliza Bolony. That was yeah. I'll tell you what, that was the PA announcer in me of like, I hear it, I'm like, I'm looking at the spelling. I'm like, but then I'm also in the press box, and no one from Alexander's yelling about it. So I'm like, oh, that must be right. So
Either that, or
they're
sometimes
just
the
so
names
used
are
to it.
just butchered so much they just, I'm not even
Yeah, but then I saw on the sheet it was phonetically spelled out. I'm like, all right. So she was outstanding for them. She scored 2 goals. Their defense was awesome, but with little under 10 minutes left, Kobe Miles scored the best goal I saw of the entire district. It was came off a corner kick, and she kicked it. She volleyed it out of the air approximately 700 miles an hour into the back of that. Like there was no way any. Like I'm just glad it didn't hit anyone because of how hard she connected on it. It was a perfect final goal for her and her outstanding career for Hillsborough. Alexander able to hold off Hillsborough to win that 2-1. And then later that night, McLean wins their first ever district title with a 2-1 win over Wheelersburg. Paisley Pryor was unreal that night. She did a great job scoring those 2 goals, really made a lot of stuff happen. We'll talk a little bit more about her teammates, throughout. But Leah Lovett in goal had a big save late. The defense, Becca Bergstrom, Parson as well. They start 3 seniors on defense, and it looked like every time Wheelersburg had a chance to have a breakaway, Bergstrom or Parson just came flying out of nowhere seemingly to shut it down or at least delay them to where the shot wasn't as clean, and they were outstanding, just a great defensive effort from them. That was another one with an outstanding goal. Mackenzie Mullins from Wheelersburg scores from about 30
So
yards out.
now remind me, because I really enjoyed your tweets on that one.
Yeah.
They went up 2-0. Then the goal didn't it come pretty quick?
Yeah. It was with believe it was like 17 minutes left. Might have been no, it was about 23 minutes left. It was a few minutes after Pryor's second one, and Mackenzie Mullins just rips it from about 30 to 35 yards
Yeah, that's where
out.
you know
Yeah,
Wheelersburg's not going away. That you're going to have to earn it.
yeah. And after that, you got to deal with Mullins, Huxetler, and now I'm blanking on the other one now, of course. So, but Ella McGraw, man. like they combined for 75 goals on the season, so you knew they weren't going away. But just an outstanding effort from McLean to shut them down late, to not allow them to come back. And that was, speaking of really cool interviews, find out afterwards. Like they had mentioned that their goalie, Leah Lovett, hadn't played. And then it turned out that was her 19th ever soccer game and just gets to win a district title.
Yeah.
Um, and then one of the cool things, I don't know if a lot of people have been to a Greenfield McLean High School, and if you have, you've seen it. But Paisley Pryor mentioned it in the interview of like the district champions. They put their team picture on the wall, and how excited she was for that team to be able to be representative
Yeah, that's awesome.
forever.
Yeah.
And it's one of the really cool traditions in our.
That's where winning is so
Yep.
special because you realize in that moment you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and like that's where she has enough of a tradition, understanding of tradition at her school of like, hey, I'm going to be there with these girls forever.
Yeah,
And like, yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
And you could just tell both of those teams that won how much it meant to them as a team, and just a really cool moment for McLean and their community as well. So McLean and Alexander win on the girls' side, and the Division 4 side on the boys. Wheelersburg just utterly dominated their way through, and kind of thought it would happen because of just based off of it wasn't as deep in Division 4, but
Yeah.
man, still you win 8-0 to get up. You get a mercy rule in the regional or the district final. It just shows you how talented they are. They're not just Nick Sylvia. There are a lot of Nick Sylvia, but not just Nick Sylvia. Evan Mitchell, Braden Bird, and that entire defense as well. They're just an outstanding team, and there's a reason why they're undefeated. But they dominate their way, and then Uniota gets their first district championship since 2021, a 3-1 win over Alexander. They get goals from Luke Motz and Elliot Alsop, and then Bryce Derringer, a kid who has really worked hard to get where he's at, scores their second goal in that one. Really good kid. Really good to see some success for a lot of those kids that went through some growing pains throughout. And then Motz and Alsop, only sophomores, have been outstanding. And uh, it's an outstanding a group of kids. So they'll play coming up, and then Division 3. Division 3, you had on the boys' side, you had Jackson back into the regionals for the first time since 2005
Wow.
as they beat Guy Academy 3-1. They're down 1-0, and then they get 2 goals from Ryan Lefevre and then 3 assists from Grady Massey. So a really impressive season for Jackson throughout this year. They lose late in the year to Gallia, which is really what Gallia got Gallia the 1 seed. But this is a Jackson team that, man, I saw a result early. They lose 4-1 to Alexander. And I thought it was going to be just kind of the same Jackson that it's been the last few years where they're going to be pretty solid, but you don't know what you're going to
Yeah.
get. And they seemingly figured something out immediately and have been really good throughout the year. FAC champions and now district champions for the first time in 20 years. And then on the girls' side, Marietta did hold serve. They win 1-0 over Fairfield Union. They also only beat,
You said that
yeah,
would be maybe first team to score wins, and it
yeah,
looks like you're right there.
yeah. So Fairfield Union, once again, another great season
Yeah.
for them and outstanding coaching staff in
Yeah.
both of those programs because Marietta is an outstanding staff as well.
With the more and more divisions that come in, there will be some more opportunities. But as I listen to you go, and I thought back to the volleyball discussion earlier, at some of these bigger divisions, there's not as many avenues or paths.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more of a tight race, and
Mm.
it's not just hey, you got to be one of the best teams. A lot of times in these tournaments, you have to be the best team.
Yes.
So like when you sit there and you're telling me, um, 2005 for Jackson,
Yeah.
that's a long time, but then it makes sense to me because well, in that division, there's just not a whole lot of opportunity. You're either the best or you're not the district champion.
Right. Yeah. And it's for a long time, it's been Athens.
Yeah.
Then there's been Union, Fairfield Union, and for the most, oh, then you'll have a Warren. Sometimes Marietta drops to that division as well. So it's a very top heavy division to where it takes a lot to get through. So like Miami Trace girls in the Division 3 now, they just won their first ever. They got to their first ever district semifinal. And it was like, man, that sounds kind of crazy. But when you
Yeah.
think about the teams that have been in there with them
Yeah.
as they're building their program, it makes a little more sense.
Sure.
So yeah, it's very difficult in those divisions to be able to get to that regional level.
Well, as we go on overtime, we talked about this. We get deeper and deeper. Some of the shows will get quicker because there's less to talk about. You saw it with
Yeah,
cross country. The list was smaller tonight because
yeah.
it's an elite list. Now we move to the regional, so we take those teams, cut them in half there, and you have those winners you just
Mhm.
highlighted. What's up next for them?
Division 5 in boys. You got South Webster against North Adams will be played at Jackson this week. That's going to be a really fun matchup. They did not play. That's one of the only matchups where like it was possible to happen where the teams didn't play, but they have a lot of like opponents and whatnot. Man, South Webster's playing really, really well right now. But North Adams has all those different scoring options as
Yep.
well. So that one could be a really fun matchup. First time ever for North Adams. South Webster feels like they've got something to prove as well. Something to look for in that regional. Berlin Highland plays Fairbanks in the other regional semifinal. If Berlin Highland wins that, let's say South Webster. Either way, if Berlin Highland can win, it would be a first-time state tournament representative. And if it's South Webster against Berlin Highland, there's so many regional qualifiers in there, and they've always came up a goal or two short, and someone's going to break through. So if Berlin Highland can beat Fairbanks, we're going to have a first time ever representative from a really historic program, which would be really cool because I was someone that we knew we could play Berlin Highland when we get to the regionals, maybe district finals because the way they were set up then. Um, and they were always a program we really respected. South Webster, one of those really respected programs as well. But North Adams coming up strong. They're a really talented team. So on the boys side, Division 5, that one could be really fun. That final could be at Zane Trace because Zane Trace is going to be hosting a final on Sunday. So look for those. I'm not sure who will have the updates from that one on Wednesday. I know I will be at Division 4 in the boys, which will be Wheelersburg against Uniota. They tied early in the season. For a while, they seemed like they were going completely opposite directions as Uniota was dealing with some different things throughout the team, but they have really tightened things up at the end of the year and have played really well. That's going to be a fun matchup at Chillicothe's Hernstein Field on Wednesday. Bring your jackets. On the other side is St. Clairsville and Riverview. Riverview 10-5-5. You may hear that and be like, they've only won half their games, but they won the state championship last year in Division 4 for a reason. They have a lot of experience coming back. They lost a lot of really talented kids, but man, they are really talented. So St. Clairsville's been a program that's been to the regionals a good bit and also has not broken through. So they're going to be hungry. But I think the winner of Wheelersburg Union has a really good chance to make it to the state tournament as well. So look for that this week as well. And then Division 3, Jackson takes on Dover. The Crimson Tornadoes, which is a great mascot. Like you could
Yeah.
just went. I wonder if they were originally just the Crimson, and then they're like, we got to throw something else in there. Let's make it the longest name we can. The Crimson Tornadoes, unbeaten in 11, and their last 11, 10 wins in that time. And then you got Watterson and Sales on the other side. Gonna be really tough for Jackson. But if you look at what Chillicothe did last year, they took the Sales to a shootout, had a chance in the regional final. So they've got a chance. They played a really tough schedule. Jackson has. It'll get them ready. Dover's not gonna be a pushover, but it is a game that if Jackson plays at the level they've been playing, they're gonna have a chance in. So on the boys' side, would love to see if we can get 2 teams out. I think it's more likely we're gonna get 1, but I would love to see 2 teams get out, of this region for divisions, 3 through 5. And then on the girls' side, we only have divisions 4 and 5. In Division 5, Fairfield's gonna take on Fairbanks. It's gonna be a really tough matchup for, Coach Alexander's group there with the Lions, but That's why you play the game. They go out and they're going to compete really hard. And Henninger is going to be a really tough one to stop for Fairbanks. Fairbanks, a really good program. Norwayne and Berlin Highland, the other side of that. So if Fairfield can pull off the upset, they would move on. But that's also why you play that really tough schedule that Fairfield played to get you ready for teams like a Fairbanks. And then Division Four, we're gonna have a team in the regional final because McLean and Alexander play. McLean with Pryor, Olaker, Henson up front. Um, Alexander's going to have to play well defensively to try to slow them down, and the same thing for McLean. McLean with a really good defense, but Bologna, Albano, Allison, just some of the names you're going to hear from Alexander. One of those teams is going to be in the regional final. Alexander was in the regional final in 2018, which the Kara Allison's sister was on that team. So I know that's a big goal for the Spartans to at least get there. And then they would play the winner of Beaver Local and Tusky Valley. And Tusky Valley has some wild scores. They had a 7-6 win, like a missed extra point, and they won. So they are very good offensively, and it seems to be not very good defensively, where Beaver Local is outstanding defensively and solid offensively. So my guess on that would be Beaver Local gets out, but that's also why you play the game. So should be a fun week in soccer, and I think we're gonna have
And quickly,
yeah,
you said Wednesday night at Chillicothe. Where else
yeah.
this week?
Tuesday night I will be at the McLean and Alexander matchup.
Nice.
Yeah, so
I think
that
that was one that was catching my attention. I mean, McLean's got to be sky high off of that Wheelersburg win. You could really sense it in their interview the other
mhm.
night. You could tell that meant a lot to them. And then
And that
listening
game's
to
at
Alex,
that game's at Jackson.
well,
Yeah.
listening to Alexander, it's one of those things where it makes a lot of sense if it's been since 2018 and
Mhm.
you have some family connection there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's got a chance to be uh, pretty high level, and I
Yes.
like Jackson as kind of a middle, nice neutral site there. Should
Mhm.
be a good atmosphere for that one.
Yeah, should be a really good atmosphere for sure. So that one's on Tuesday. Fairfield will play Fairbanks at Lancaster on Tuesday on the girls' side, and then on the boys' side, Jackson and Dover will be played at Logan. So not a bad trip for Jackson in that one. Union of Wheelersburg will be at Chillicothe. Super not very bad trip for Uniota in that one because that's 5 minutes down the road, but, for Wheelersburg, they have experience at Chillicothe as well. Then South Webster against North Adams will be at Jackson, which is, you know, not too bad for either, and,
No,
a nice atmosphere there. And then the winners, those sites will be determined, and I think that just kinda goes with travel and whatnot, but it sounds like St. Trace will have a final for sure. I think Logan typically has a final, but we'll kinda see throughout the week, so be sure to check out, the OHSAA or at least sosaohio.com to try to find out where those, meetings and matchups are gonna be for the teams that advance to the finals. So now we're going to jump into what's typically our first
uh-huh.
avenue of the day, but it's going to be our final topic of the day, which will be football. So we'll get to our game of the week, which we'll get to that to finish, but we want to go through a couple of the ones that we highlighted last week, but you know it also shout those teams out. Chillicothe at Jackson just really impressed with what Jackson was able to do.
Yeah, high level, just scoreless after the first quarter. So as you expect in a rivalry game, defense hard hitting early on. Jackson goes up 14-0 at a time. And then I thought where Jackson was able to really break it open was when they added the score in the third
Mhm.
quarter, 21-0, and they win at 35-0. Carte Ligon, the incredible back for Chillicothe. We were joking week before when I heard a coach was excited about the 190 yards or whatever,
Yeah,
holding Baker to that.
yeah.
In this case, I think Ligon finished unofficially with like 25 or 26 carries for like 129, 130 yards.
Which is
That's
still
like
fine.
five a carry.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
but it's one of those where he's that good, you'll take that
Mhm,
because what he talked about on the show, you guys the other night, was he talked about we bottled him up to where we never let him hit the home run.
mhm,
I mean, he had some 8, 9, 10 yard carries, but we were able to keep him, from getting out in the open
mhm.
field and just going on us. And then what that did was, I thought the difference was listening to him talk about the offensive side of things, Cody Wolford, Ryan Simons, Eli Ray, Charlie. What you start naming all 3 and 4 elite, we've seen Eli Ray make some big plays for
Right.
them. So that ends up being the difference. The quarterback can run it or throw it, and when he starts to throw it, he can throw it to multiple people. You add that into that defensive performance, and you got to feel really good if you're Jackson about heading into the postseason.
Yeah, and really impressed with what they were able to do. And Coach Carper called in to the coach show as well, and you could just tell that they're still,
Still hungry, still
they're
hungry.
still hungry, and that's why that program is going to be where he's going to take it to because they gave themselves a chance to win the league in the first year, fell
Yep.
short, but you know I think a lot of people didn't think that was gonna happen in year 1. So, year 1, you're a little ahead of time, and now you're gonna play the
Not
playoffs.
just to jump ahead
Yeah.
too far, but 5 FAC teams, right? So
Yeah.
you're doing everything you just described about Chillicothe in a league that's obviously really legit
Mm.
because, it's being proven in terms of the teams that are not yet putting the pads away come Monday
Mhm.
of week 11.
Yeah, so five teams in the FAC get to the playoffs, and that's just out of 6. So, it's an outstanding league, and, that's why I kinda jokingly said the other day, like, we have a FAC Invitational, and, like, there's a little pod of it that someone from the FAC is gonna be playing in
Yeah,
week
you're right.
13,
You're
so,
right.
but yeah, congratulations to Jackson for wrapping up a perfect FAC season. Chillicothe drops to 3rd, as they finish behind Miami Trace, who finished 2nd with their big win over Washington Courthouse. And then just to kind of wrap things up on the FAC, uh, Hillsborough wins the Rotary Cup by surviving a 2-point conversion attempt with about 3.5 minutes left against McLean, and then Hillsborough ends up winning it, which gets them the last spot into Division
Yeah.
uh, or into Region 12, which we'll talk about a lot later on. But yeah, just impressive win for Jackson, and then another impressive win. We had 9-0 against 9-0, Nelsonville-York over Athens.
Yeah, really, really impressive here. Derek Webb down there with the updates. I was following those as I was calling the game with Carson back at Huntington. Quarterback run from Cameron Sullivan gets the Buckeyes up 6-0. And then here's kind of a theme of the night: Athens fumbles. They
Mm,
just couldn't hold on to the football like throughout the evening. They when you're playing in those big games, you can't give football away,
mm,
and they fumble, and then Sullivan hits Alec Thompson for 27 yards. Athens does score late. Daniel Heitland, we had him back in
yeah,
week 2 on our SOSA game against Green Valley, and very, very talented. He does get him on the board, and at 14-6 at the half, it feels like maybe they've survived it a little bit. But then Alston, and I'll need help on that name.
I think it's
Gottier.
I think,
Okay,
yeah,
scores on the run to go up 26. The talented running back there for
yes.
Nelsonville-York. Then Solomon hits Thompson again, and that was kind of the dagger, the
Mm,
27-6. And um, Athens did make a late push. Heitland hit Briar Thomas for a score 27-12. But John, I guess what comes to my mind here is what an impressive win for Nelsonville, a small school in that TVC, Ohio, enrollment wise. I say smallest school by quite a bit in
yeah,
a lot of areas. And for them to go and physically go toe to toe with Athens that way, turn them over, and then get out in front
mm,
early and really control the game start to finish. That's probably one of the more impressive things I watched.
mm,
Well, not watched, but
right.
followed this week.
Yeah, just really impressive with what the Buckeyes were able to do. Coach Rusty Richards had that program in a really good position for a while. And when you win back to back FAC or FAC TVC Ohio titles as the smallest school, really impressed with what they're able to do. Sullivan, really solid athlete overall, but has done a really good job of running the offense for them, and you know they they just have players that can cause havoc defensively, and because of that, they're slowing teams down, and also because of that, they have a bye now because of that. So it's congratulations to the Buckeyes. I think I said because of that 3 times in one sentence as well. So it was just really impressive with what Nelsonville's been able to do, and Athens. because of a couple of teams that they had beaten got wins that maybe they were underdogs in on Friday night, which we may mention a little bit later as well, helped Athens get into the playoffs as the 11th seed. So, and then our last game that we're going to talk about at length was Piketon at Huntington, a big one in the SVC. It was really for third place, but also because of some different things that happened with the points, ended up really being a must win for Huntington to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, regardless of all of that, and I know that stuff's really important, obviously. I mean, where you
Yeah.
finish in the league and playoff points and all that. Throw all that aside, and it was just an incredible game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it almost didn't need all of that to be an incredible game. You add all that in, and then the urgency and the intensity was there. Huntington takes opening drive and gets it all the way down deep, and they fumble. So then Piketon comes back, really weird play, kind of almost trying to throw it outside. I can't tell if he was trying to throw it away or maybe just, avoid the sack, or maybe he thought he was close to the goal line, but he throws it backwards through the end zone for safety. So it's 2-0 Huntington. And then Piketon settles in and offensively gets it going in a hurry. The return of Shanks was huge. And here's a theme in week 10. I talked about it all week or all year, week to week, about how there's no next man up sometimes at these small schools. You play without these kids. You watch Piketon throughout the year, and their offense just seemed like it just wasn't very explosive. And it goes to show you, you return a Johnson, you return a Shanks, you return some of these guys, and then you still have Blanton, and then you have Savage. Well, now all of a sudden you get a chance to see, oh, this is what the Piketon offense is
Right.
supposed to look like. And look, I officially butchered the SBC and cost me catching Derek because I was high on Westfall. So I had Westfall or Huntington. Nope. Huntington beats Westfall. So then I'm mad at Westfall. So I picked Piketon to beat Westfall, and Westfall scores half 100. So now I'm mad at Piketon. So I pick Huntington, and then Piketon comes out and gets these kids
Mm.
back. And
Yeah.
so again, that's just me
That's
ready
why the
to.
pickup's hard because we cover too much.
We'll just again, when you don't get a chance to see these things and you don't understand who's coming back, who's out. Man, I was just so impressed by Piketon on how they approach the game. You know what I mean? You have a senior class that has been through Piketon program from the time they could walk, and it didn't go the way they want this year. I mean, they lose the Valley Union Zane Trace, no big deal. And then the Westfall loss had to be a little bit like, final to them.
Right.
You wouldn't have known that at all. The way they had come out, John, the other night and played, they respond with two scores. They got 15-2. What's Huntington do? They come back with two scores. One was a big time play from Hirsch, went all
Mhm.
Patrick Mahomes on it, like running out to his left, like off one foot and
Mhm.
then back across his body. Everything you wouldn't teach, but
Right.
like just athletically just making a play.
Mhm.
So they're up one at half, and then Huntington scores to go 22-15 in the second half. And then Piketon scores 22-22. Then Huntington scores 30-20. I mean, back and forth we go, and it's just intense. And once Piketon was able to cut to 30-28, they ended up finally getting a defensive stop. And once they did, it was the ability to go and score and go up 36-30, and then they just put the game away, possessing the football. But Shanks was involved in an 80-yard score and a 76-yard score over the top, and that was just a complete difference maker from what I've watched Piketon earlier on. So yeah, I was impressed. The coach in me and just the sports fan in me was really impressed with how Piketon approached it when all they had to play for basically was the pride of putting on that Piketon uniform one last time.
Mhm.
Give the Huntington kids a lot of credit. I know they come up short. Like you said, there were some factors that were really, really unique that flipped the computer points. Just it is what it is, and that's hard to stomach probably. But incredible year for them. They do graduate 10 seniors, but they return 10 juniors with some underclassmen that are very talented. I think the Huntington football program obviously took a giant step forward this year.
Yeah. So shout out to Huntington for the outstanding turnaround that they've been enacting over the last few years. Losing like a Taylor and Nichols are going to be really hurtful offensively, but man, they're going to get, you have the Hirsch's back, you're going to get Jeter McDonald back as well. Like they're,
Yeah, great.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and the kicking game of him too.
yes.
That was a big factor throughout the year.
So that's going to make a big difference for them. I know their eighth grade group only lost one game throughout the year, so I mean that's Coach Beeler and his staff have done a really good job setting the township up for the future. But man, Coach Golian, his son's last game, and they go out on a winning note. So it was really cool to see for Piketon. We'll kind of see that. That's going to be the end of the Golian quarterback
Well,
run for
Gaulian
good.
had a
Yeah,
huge night too. I don't have that in front of me. I should have made note of it. But the other night on my sheet, I mean, you're talking about well up over 300 yards
yeah,
of offense, over 200 passing easily, probably up into the 225,
mhm,
250 range. Then easily ended up running for over 100
yeah,
too. Um, and then obviously Shanks was a big part of that. Blanton was involved in that. Um, yeah, just real impressed with. And Johnson had a huge
yes.
catch on a third and forever play.
Mm.
Just back to full strength. That had to feel good for them one last time to let their offense take the field kind of the way they were expecting to look all year long, I'm
Right.
sure. And then injury bug got them.
Yeah, and then this week's Perfection One collision of the game, as we mentioned, typically goes to our game here. It's going to go to Piketon's Trevin Shanks on this 2-point conversion that we're going to be clipping in. Shanks had a really big final game for the Red Streaks, as you mentioned, the two long touchdowns, the Streaks 36-30 win over Huntington. So remember that you can find Perfection One in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross counties. And if you meet them, you will find out why they are highly recommended.
And for the record, again, if you weren't with us earlier, Shanks was awesome the other night. But Sadie Binkley, I'm trying to go to bat for you. Her collision into the bench the other night,
We might
bunting
have
the
to clip.
ball up. Ingram popped it back over. That was my vote. So just for the record, I want to put that out.
Yeah, we may have that clipped as well in there. I have it as a note. I have that noted in here, and I have
It really was a great play.
yeah, I have everything that is very very bolded. And it's like, why is everything bolded? Well, it just that's how it started. And so now going into our next portion, well, here in a second, but um, like I had to make it red to like, hey, clip the Binkley part. So we'll clip that play as well. So team of the week this week. We've done it throughout the year. Typically we pick one. Shane, I'm gonna let you pick the first one.
Yeah, I went back and forth. All these champions, obviously the Eastern 10-0 season, Jackson, Burr, all the Circleville had a big win there tonight.
Mm,
Luke Carroll,
yeah,
I have no idea how John's going, but there's no way as someone who coached at the smallest school in the league for 30 years, I can't go Nelsonville-York.
mm,
What they did there throughout the year and then to go to Athens there and do that the other night, that's just really impressive to me. To have your program at that level to go through the TBC Ohio and let's be honest, not really win it, kind of
right.
dominate it,
Yeah.
right? Kind of have your way with it. That to me really stood out to me as the most impressive thing. And again, that's not taking anything away from Circleville or how hard it is to go 10-0, which obviously Nelsonville did, but so did some other teams. Uniota, Easternburg, all those teams did the same thing. But I just think Nelsonville-York would have to be my vote if I was going to pick.
Well, and then you're mentioning, some of these guys anyway. I'm not sure. Did you mention Caleb Layton in that? Because like if I just go to I'm gonna pull up these stats because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, you talked about this last week.
yeah,
Yeah,
16 sacks on the year.
yeah.
47 tackles for loss. Like it's just 14 hurries, which might be just like I'm just guessing a dude that had 16 sacks is coming after you.
You
Like
think once he got to 10, people start rolling some extra fizzle.
yeah, I would be throwing all kinds of extra guys at him. So, yeah, they've had an outstanding season, as you mentioned throughout. I can't disagree in any way. Cam Sullivan's done a great job for them. A very efficient,
Yeah.
12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He doesn't have to throw a ton because Gaudier, hopefully we get it right. Over 1,200 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns.
Rebounds,
Yeah,
yeah.
Um, Walker Stone has 460 yards rushing and also 254 yards receiving. Then you got Alec Thompson, almost 500 yards receiving. They're a very balanced team, and then you got a dude like Leighton who
Yeah.
just causes havoc as well. So uh, I agree with you on that. That's a good pick for team of the week, but I'm gonna go with one that you mentioned a couple times. For the first time in 10 years, they finished over 500. For the first time since 2013, they beat Bloom Carroll, which was Circleville. So Coach Sherritt has done. They are it's a Circleville program that
Yeah.
you know it's I would say probably a sleeping monster. I mean, it's you don't they always have athletes, and it feels like they're kind of spread out with those athletes at different times. And if Coach Sherritt can get the best athletes out at all times at Circleville, man, that's a program that could be one to look for in the MSL, a little bit like what Coach Bartholomew was able to do at Logan Elm, and then Coach Wade Bartholomew was able to do at Bloom Carroll. If
Don't you see a parallel to Coach Hoops at Uniota? I
Mhm,
mean, I talked about this earlier in the year about how when Coach Hoops was the right guy for the Uniota job, because at that time it wasn't about what offense you're going to run, what defense you're going to. No, it's going to be, can your dynamic personality and your relationship with kids get the best athletes out 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row so that we can start to cycle. And then that's what happened, and slowly but surely. And then now look, if you look at Uniota, they just won their third straight gold ball, and they're probably pretty heavy favorites to win another three in a row
mhm,
unless something really, really
re-
wild happens. I like what you're saying there. If I
mhm,
follow you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're saying here's this dynamic state level coach that if all he does is just get into the Circleville hallways and get the best athletes and the best
mhm,
size out for the football program 3, 4, 5 classes in a row, there could be something
mhm.
crazy about to happen there.
Yeah, because it's it's been a program that's struggled for a while, but you get a coach with that pedigree, and that pedigree being an alumni of the school, I think that he clearly wants to be there, can really, you know, make some really good things happen. And I think it's already started in year one for Circleville, going 7-3.
Yeah,
I think if you ask the Circleville people, 5-5 would have been great.
yeah,
Just kind of, you take care of the 5-5, and you beat Logan Elm, you beat Westfall, so you win in the Pickaway County games, and then, you give yourself a chance to maybe make the playoffs in the first year. Now you're getting a home game. You beat Bloom Carroll, you beat the league champion,
yeah.
kept them from having a perfect season in the league, and I think you just see kind of the shared effect in year one, and that was one of those things, like, I'm on the show, so I would like more people to watch the coaches call in show. But like when you hear some of these coaches call in, you can hear why kids want to play for them or why
Right.
they're able to get so much out of them. And that's one of the things. Like I heard Rusty Richards from Nelsonville talking on a different show the other night when I left. You can tell why kids want to play for him. Like those dynamic individuals that can really get kids out, and you get the most kids out, and then you get good size out, and it can really benefit your program in a major way. And that is why you've seen a lot of success to me for our two teams of the week this week in Circleville and Nelsonville-York.
And I think it's a great pick as well. Real quick, as hard as winning is, let's
Yeah.
highlight our 10-0 teams. I know we got Nelsonville, we got Berg, we got Eastern, Pike, Eastern.
Yes.
We've got Uniota. There's 4 of them in
Mhm.
our coverage. And again,
Yeah.
there's not very many, because by
Mhm.
the time you get to the end, they beat up on each other, or you get like the other night, Athens, Nelsonville,
Yeah.
someone's gonna lose.
Yeah.
I 4, is that it?
So it's Wheelersburg, right?
Yeah.
Who
So
out?
Wheelersburg, said Nelsonville,
Yep.
Eastern, and
Hmm.
Uniota. Those are the
Hmm.
4 I had in my notes. Am I missing?
Let me glance down through. I believe that is it
I
because
thought,
Athens was 9-0 and they
yeah,
lost. Miami Chase finished 9-1. Well, Waterford was 8-2. Valley was 8-2. Zane Trace was 8-2.
And all of those are incredible teams,
Yeah,
and that's what I mean, like 10-0, winning's hard. You know what I mean? To
yeah.
to 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 go run the table, that's just something I wanted to definitely make sure we shout out here.
Well, and then it's going undefeated is something that should not be, you know, should not be not celebrated.
Yeah.
Like it's no matter who you play, you still got to take care of business each and every
Oh,
week,
winning's hard.
and you're going to get teams' best shots more times than not. And because of that, you got to go out. Like Eastern had that 3 week in a row where they're playing just outstanding teams in their own league that gets 4 teams into the playoffs,
Right.
out of their small six school division, and they just pretty much dominate
Yeah.
for the most part, and, just outstanding for them. That's their 3rd straight season of going undefeated, so, I mean, it's like, old hat to the for the team that's been around for 10 years. Just Coach Tomlinson's done an outstanding job. If you looked at the Uniota program before, I mean, really going back, you had Coach Metzler, but you also had, know, going, off the top of my head right now, but, um, Coach Hudnall. Yeah, Coach Hudnall, and once Coach Hudnall came in, it started to kinda swing a little bit
Yeah.
for Uniota. It wasn't initially, but in his last year, they go 8-2, and it felt like they were in a really good spot.
Right.
He turns it over to Coach Jeff Metzler, and he goes 5-5 one year, but the rest of the years are over 500. Go to Coach Hoops. First couple years were about 500, but 9-2, 9-2, 9-2, and then 10-0 to start this year. It's a program that was, for a long time, it was kind of an afterthought at
Yeah.
Uniota, but started with Coach Hudnall and then really turned to Coach Metzler, and now, especially Coach Hoops, that program has really turned into what it is now, which is a 10-0 team that it has a bye in the postseason, which
Yeah.
I remember. I think it was Coach Hudnall's last year. Me and my friend David Page were talking, and we're like, "What are they going to do if they can't get in at 8-2 and couldn't get in the playoffs?" And then now it's you're hosting a game with a bye week. So
Right.
um, something really impressed with what they've been able to do. They've done some really cool things as well. So if you saw the Londonderry Lens posted this week, some really cool
Yeah.
stuff, which is why you're getting so many kids out, um, and why the kids are buying into that program as well. So then just jumping to Nelsonville, we talked about them as one of our teams of the week, and then Wheelersburg. They go out and they play a tough schedule.
Sure.
You beat a really good Cincinnati McNicholas team, and then a really good Ironton team for Ironton's only loss, and then
Jackson.
yeah, beat Jackson as well. So I mean, that's that just an outstanding season for Wheelersburg. Coach Woodward does an outstanding job with them. His program is in a great spot. A lot of seniors on that group. A lot of seniors,
Yeah.
amongst these 10-0 teams as well. But um,
Well, that's
the
what you get from
yeah.
them programs. You get a lot of 16, 17, 18-year-olds out there on Friday night. And that makes a big, big difference just from a physicality standpoint. Remember what we talked about having a lot of different guys that can make tackles. Remember we compared the Division 7 level?
Mhm.
Well, the other night, like over the last few weeks, like a Jackson, Miami Trace, Chillicothe level,
Mhm.
that's a whole different level. You're not holding Carte Liggins.
Right.
I like to say that laughing to 5 yards of carry for 130 yards without having 11
Mhm.
guys on the field that have a chance to get
Right.
him to the ground. And
Yeah.
that's the difference in that depth that you're talking about. These elite programs are able to get uh, old.
Right.
Right, they're able to get that 17, 18-year-old young man on the field on a Friday night. And that's huge.
Yeah, and that's what ultimately pays off for undefeated seasons for those 4 programs. So congratulations to all 4 of them. And now we're going to jump into our playoff preview, which is going to talk just pretty much where everyone's going to be. Now we're not going to go super in depth on games, but we will say who's playing who. Maybe a quick thought on each one, or at least what the Fantastic 50 line is on those games.
Yeah.
So I did see Little Miami, and I got this from Carson Francis yesterday, and I didn't even see it because I'm at 4 different games. And I saw it today as I was prepping, and it was like it was the old Brent Musburger line of great teams win or good teams win, but great teams cover. Or little Miami's coach puts out, "Hey, we went 10-0 against the spread on Fantastic 50 this year," and they go 3-7, make the playoffs. But we saw them in week 1 at Jackson, and we're like, "This is a good team. Like they might win 3 games, and they're a good team, but they covered all 10 weeks." So shout out to Little Miami on that. So that Fantastic 50 just throws out the
Yeah.
they do a lot of really cool stuff on like figuring it out. It's not the end all be all because, still I think they get like 75% right, which is really good. But yeah, so moving first, our playoff preview, Division 3, Region 11, Athens at Buckeye Valley. Buckeye Valley a 20-point favorite. Athens, we weren't sure if they're going to get in because of the non-league schedule and kind of the league schedule as well. So they beat one team that had 5 wins on the season, another team with 4, and then the rest I think were 2 or less. And River Valley beats River Valley beats Fayetteville, which I think was probably like a toss up. And then Paint Valley gets their first win of the year. Congrats to those kids.
Shout out Paint Mountain.
Yeah,
But again,
yeah.
there's a whole there's like 3 seniors that returned to the field
Mhm.
there in week 10, and I had a chance to watch that game on film this afternoon. Just a completely different team. I understand it's a different opponent, but I'm just saying throughout the year, you put a kid back on the field that had 30 tackles in the first 3 weeks and hasn't played since. Well,
Mhm.
now all of a sudden your defense is a little bit better. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like you return 3 seniors to the lineup, and all of a sudden that's a different football team.
Right, and I got to see, on Facebook, saw the team celebrating with, like, the band and stuff after the game. It was really cool because we always say, like, you always hope a team wins, and if you can win in week 10, everything you've gone through for the entire year is a little worth it because you get to have that last celebration. So
Yeah.
it was pretty cool for them. Those 2 games, River Valley and Paint Valley, getting those wins really helped boost Athens out of the 13th spot into the 11th. They're going to go all the way to Delaware, not the state, to play Buckeye Valley,
Yeah.
where my brother's in that school district. So
Cool.
shout out Buckeye Valley. He's like the only, I think he might be the only house on the street that's in the district. It's like the weirdest
Huh.
whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's some people that have different words for it, but um, shout out to Buckeye Valley because it's might be cheaper to live in Buckeye Valley than the other district that he could live in. So it works out for him there. So that one, good to see Heitland back for um, Athens. They're going to be, uphill battle as I mentioned, 20-point dogs in
Yeah.
that one. But they get back to the playoffs and they're going to have a chance to go on the road and battle. So I mean, they're not going to lay down. There's a reason why
Oh
reason why you
no.
play in those games.
And
So
they got an old offensive line, and then they've got good skill kids. Obviously, this past week, um, they give credit, I'm sure, to Nelsonville-York. That's what you do to your opponent. But,
mm,
but as you turn that film on, you've got to be disappointed in yourself that you just couldn't stop putting the football on the ground.
right.
So you got to take care of the ball. You obviously got to go up there and take care of the ball, and give yourself a chance to get into the second half and have a chance to steal one.
Yeah, so it's be interesting there to see. We're going to follow that game on Friday, and then another couple with the same line. One's kind of weird to me. Division 3, Region 12, Chillicothe at McNicholas. McNicholas a 28-point favorite in that. I just don't see how like that would be one where you're not betting on high school games.
Uh,
I would probably be taking Chillicothe in that one because with what McNicholas was able to do, they almost beat. Uh, Wheelersburg at Wheelersburg. Wheelersburg scores in the last 20 seconds, I
yeah.
believe, to win that game. They win that game 10-7. Ironton beats McNicholas 29-7 the next week. But they go out and they beat Hamilton Baden this week, who was a top 10 team throughout the year. And with that upset, it kind of bumps them and gets them those big points that you need on Fantastic 50 to get that. I would say this is probably more of like a 7 to 10 line is what I would guess. Chillicothe arguably has the best player on the field in that one. I know McNicholas has some really talented players as well. You're going to be playing not Jimmy John's, it's not Jersey Mike's. What's the other one? Not Charlie's. The other sub place. Uh, oh my! It's across from Applebee's in Chillicothe.
Penn Station.
Yeah, Penn Station. Penn Station Stadium. That's where they're gonna be playing. It's got one-sided bleachers. It's weird, but
I
they
didn't
have
know that.
they have great lighting.
Uh,
That's one of the first places that I saw with the LED lighting. Saw a game down at McNicholas a few years
Yeah,
ago
I've
during
been
COVID, and
Yeah.
it's a cool stadium, one-sided, kind of weird. But for Chillicothe, in year one of Coach Carper, get a chance to go down, compete in a playoff game. They had a really good chance. Dewey Daly just said that they had an 85% chance to host the playoff game. He just literally just sent me that text, which he did not know what our schedule. Like he didn't. I don't think he's in the overtime file. Yes, that's good timing. So yeah, they had an 85% chance to host, and then McNicholas beats Baden, which is something Coach Carper said on the call-in show the other day. Was he's like, I think we're gonna have to go on the road, and um, they're gonna have a chance. I know it says 28 points, but they're gonna have a chance. I think Coach Carper's gonna have that team definitely ready. Uh, Anytime you got Carte Ligon in the backfield, you're gonna have a chance.
No question.
And then the other one in that is Hillsborough at Miami Trace. Miami Trace, the 28-point favorite in that. That one kind of surprised me as well because they won by 43 in week 7. So Miami Trace won that in week 7, but shout out to Hillsborough. Really battled to be able to get into the playoffs. It seemed like they were almost a sure thing. And then they get that big defensive hold against McLean to get themselves a chance in the playoffs as the 12 seed. Miami Trace is the 5. The winner of that contest goes to Jackson in week 12, which is why we said the FAC Invitational earlier. FAC is going to get a team in week 13 where they're going to have to match up with probably London, who Chillicothe saw in week 2, one of the better teams in the state. But you still got to strap it on and go out and compete in that. Yeah.
When you watch that game that we had the privilege of calling back there in week 9,
Mhm.
the hint of having that in week 12 again, sign me up.
Yeah, should be really fun for that. Then moving to Division 4 in Region 15, got Heath at Fairfield Union. The Falcons had to win their last 4 games of the regular season to get in the playoffs and to be able to host. And then you have Heath, who had to win their last 5. Uh, Fantastic 50 has Heath as a 4-point favorite going into that one. Fairfield Union has played well as of late, and obviously Heath has as well. So that's kind of a coin flip in that one. And then another coin flip would be Philo at Circleville. Circleville they were already in, but their first win over Bloom Carroll since 2013 gets them a home game. Philo did lose 3 of 4 to end the season. So due to that, it ends up putting Circleville at a 1-point favorite. 2 teams may be going in different directions. It's going to be tough for Circleville. I will say, I don't know if you know their mascot. It's going to be an electric atmosphere.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's the Muskingum Valley League has some really good mascots. So like
Yeah.
the Philo Electrics, got the Cricksville Ceramics, Tri Valley Scotties.
Scotty.
I know I'm missing some. There's a couple in there as well. Yeah. But yeah, it's an outstanding league, which is where Philo's coming out of. So um, Circleville and Fairfield Union both host this week, and then Unioto will get a bye. They will play in week 12 against the winner of Canton South and Columbus East, who play in week 11. Really athletic matchup there between those two schools. Canton South kind of went in a similar direction as Philo, struggling late, but they had to win in week 10 and then won 56-48 to get their trip to the playoffs. And they're going to be a very athletic team coming out of the Canton area. So,
Well, Circleville obviously playing at a high level, learning how to win some different games early. The
mhm,
overtime win Westfall, the 6-3 game. But then remember we said last week on overtime, I said going into week 10 they had I think I called it a unique
mhm,
opportunity, and that's what it was. Well, then all of a sudden you go and you prove to yourself, well, wait a minute, maybe why look at this as just a foundation year and we're a year away? Why can't we just be there now?
right.
So they've got to go into this game with all kinds of confidence, just coming off of a Bloom Carroll win, and then with Uniota, um, going to get a week to. I know Uniota's just absolutely hammered at the running back position
Yeah.
now, starting to drop like flies, and it's going to test even their depth, especially in a week 12 where they're going to probably, well, there's no probably about it. They're going to
Yeah.
play the most athletic team they've played all
Mhm.
year. So that'll be a great challenge for them. But again, they're in that great challenge because they got an undefeated season and earned a bye.
Mhm. Yeah, they've taken care of business. If they can get healthy before week 12, then that's gonna make a big difference for them as they look to win their first, uh, playoff game in a year where the playoffs are, decided by points instead of just if you want to be in. So, now moving on to Division 4, Region 16, you've got New Richmond at Washington. Washington really gets the home game because of that win over Granville, in the non-league, but this is the Battle of the Lions. You got a big lion matchup, big cat matchup here. Washington had that, Chuck Williamson in his first year back, for the Blue Lions. Sam Pfeiffer has thrown for almost 2,500 yards, only a sophomore, has been absolutely outstanding for the Blue Lions, while New Richmond's Brady Young has thrown for almost 1,700 or over 1,700, and Dylan Wolf has rushed for 1,000. A little more balanced team there, but this one could be a really high scoring matchup. Washington is a 7-point favorite in that one.
But that's an atmosphere. That's an atmosphere that as it gets a little colder. I don't know what the rain forecast is going to be
Mm.
throughout the week. That can be a slower field.
Yep.
The crowd can be right on top of you there. That has a chance to be a really really wild
Mm.
atmosphere there, which would obviously favor Washington.
Yeah.
But you're right. Pfeiffer and company, and some of those skill kids, they were really starting to come on last year, and this year they've really started to break out. So what's exciting for them is not only the opportunity they have now, but even in the years to come.
Mhm. Yeah, so an outstanding opportunity for Washington to maybe get to a week 12 with a win there. So now moving to our biggest region, Division 5, Region 19, we'd be remiss to not mention Ironton being dismissed from the playoffs, which shook up a lot of stuff, which is really part of the reason why Union got a home game was because Ironton
Well, I
forfeits
had text you
yeah,
asking, doesn't Uniona have to wait?
yeah,
I was under the impression when I got up Saturday morning that they had to wait for a game that night,
right.
and then
Yeah.
you had explained to me that well,
Well,
that's a
they originally had, and then it was determined that Ironton had played an ineligible player on Friday, which gave Portsmouth a forfeit win, which swings things pretty well for Portsmouth here that we'll talk about in a minute. But
sure.
it gives the teams that beat Portsmouth, like a Uniota, extra points that bumped Uniota to get to the 4 instead of the 5, and really gives them an extra week to get healthy. So moving into Division 5, Region 15, Ironton dismissed from the playoffs. You can read or hear about it so many different places.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into it here, but it does shake things up in a big way. So Zane Trace at Valley. We'll go into depth on that one here in a few minutes. It's going to be our streaming game. So we're going to talk more about that later. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But Amanda Clear Creek, a 3-point favorite at Portsmouth, a rematch of last season. Uh, Amanda jumped out to a quick lead in that one. Portsmouth ends up with Chase Highland, who's moved on, is going to be running track, I believe, at Shawnee. That was a really fun game for the most part last year. Ends up being a 35-16 win for Portsmouth. I think those teams are almost flipped from a year ago, besides the fact the location's the same. So Amanda seems like their tough schedule has really gotten them ready. This one's going to be a really a good hard hitting matchup on Friday night.
Well, it really is. We've listened to the coaching throughout the year, and you're right. I mean, you almost had a situation where the schedule was so tough that it was going to cost them a
Right.
chance to get in. Well, now they are in, and they become a team that you can't be thrilled to be on the other side of the bracket with them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that yeah, you're right. That game's got a chance to be a really good one.
Yeah, and even though they're 5-5, it's still gonna be a really
Oh
tough
yeah,
team, and, where I mentioned for Portsmouth, they were when Saturday morning started, before all the stuff was adjusted, they were 13th, so they were out of the
Okay.
playoffs, and now they have a home game as the 5 seed. So just a really wild swing of all that stuff that happened. And then the last matchup for this week is Morgan at Cold Grove. The Hornets are 7-point favorites, led by Caden Murphy, almost 1,900 yards, 24 touchdowns on the season. OVC champions were the Hornets. Morgan, the Raiders, coming off of a must-win over Philo to even get into the playoffs. They went 2-8 a year ago, so they're going to be a hungry team going on the road at Cold Grove. Dawson Bryant, the Hornets are going to be ready for that one. I think the Hornets have an excellent chance to win that. I can see why they are 7-point favorites there. Then moving on to our teams that have the bye, Wheelersburg will play the winner of Morgan and Colgrove, and then Nelsonville will play the winner of Union Local and Afrocentric for Week 12 for those teams. Afrocentric, I know, has some really high level prospects on that team, but I don't know if they have the depth that we'll see needed to beat a Nelsonville. So that'll be very interesting. Division 6, Region 23, Eastern at Colonel Crawford. Colonel Crawford, a big favorite in that one. Battle of the Eagles. Colonel Crawford did beat Fairfield Union 28-14 in Week 2. Eastern had to win their last 3 to get in the playoffs, so they're playing well. But Colonel Crawford has played well throughout the entire year.
Eastern continues to impress me, how they spread their athletes out throughout a lot of different sports.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And stay really, really competitive at so many different things for
Mhm.
no bigger than they are. I think that's really impressive.
Yes, I completely agree. So another outstanding season for the Eastern Eagles of Reedsville, because there's another Eastern Eagles that we'll talk about here in a few minutes as
Yep.
well. So jumping over to Region 24 in Division 6, Dayton Christian is at Rock Hill. Rock Hill, a 2-point favorite in there. The Redmen lost their last 3. They still host. If Dalen Cox and Braylon McClellan can connect early and often, that's Cox's favorite. Um, Wide receiver. The Redmen will have a chance to advance. 2-point favorites, as I mentioned in that. That one's going to be an interesting matchup. And then Cincinnati Summit Country Day will be at West. West 13-point favorite in that. Anthony Bishop and the Senators been kind of up and down throughout the year, but going to the Rock, never easy to play. And if you're the Silver Knights coming from Cincinnati, that is going to be a really tough atmosphere to go into. I like West in that matchup, but Summit Country Day did have a really good win over a really good North College Hill team.
First quarter will be really important in that. A
Yes.
lot of times when you're playing a team with the athleticism that you're going to see from some of these teams out of the area, you can't simulate it in practice. But
Right.
a lot of times, just surviving the first quarter and settling into the game, and let the atmosphere of what it's going to look like at Nelsonville in Week 12 or at the Rock in Week 11 or
Mhm.
wherever we're talking
Yeah.
there. Let that atmosphere take over. Get your kids into the game. But I've heard coaches say, man, it's just there's no way to simulate the type of speed that you're going to see because it's unlike something that maybe we've seen all year.
Right. And then moving into Division 7, Region 27, Trimble at South Gaia. South Gaia is going to be a 17-point favorite in that. The Rebels were really in a must win on Saturday night. They hosted Sims Valley, and then they get a 2-point conversion to go up by 2, 38-36, and then they get an interception late to wrap it up, and not only and they're in such a crazy situation of like they were a must win to get in, but if they won, they got a home game and were on the verge of getting a bye. Like they were so many points on the line in that week 10, and then for South Guy able to get the win and the home game.
Well, you said the bet the over.
Yeah, take the over in that one, and they got the defensive stop they needed
Yeah.
late in the game. Hunter and Lane Wright, along with Judah Cremines, just some of the standouts for the 7-3 Rebels. While Luke Osborne is definitely going to be the main player toting the rock for Coach Phil Fair's Tomcats. I'm not sure if it's the first time they've been to Crown City since South Gaia left the TVC Hawking, but longtime TVC Hawking foes in this matchup could be a fun one to follow. Trimble, Coach Ferris has just been a phenomenal coach for a very long time for
Well,
Trimble.
there's no question, and South Galley offense might end up being too much, but Trimble would be a dangerous opponent there. I think they're going to come in with a physicality and run the ball a little bit and so forth. That'll be interesting to see what type of tempo breaks out in that game.
Yes, completely agree with that. The winner of that does travel to Sims Valley in week 12, so we could have a really fun rematch if it's South Gaia. So I'm sure Sims Valley will be there watching very closely. Waterford also, they got the 2 seed. They will take on the winner of Strasburg, Franklin, and Lucas. I'm guessing that's going to be Strasburg, Franklin, which a lot of the smaller schools in our area know Strasburg, Franklin for a long
Well,
time. Yeah.
remember Waterford? They were probably the closest team to
Yes.
beating Nelsonville-York this year.
Yeah.
So
That
Waterford obviously has the ability to play at a high level.
Yeah, I think Danville's probably the favorite in that region, but I think Waterford, being the 2 seed, but also I think Waterford probably is going to
Yeah.
be the second favorite in that. Should be really fun for them in week 12 to be able to host the winner of that game. And then moving over to the last region, Region 28 in Division 7, you got Cedarville as a 6-point favorite at Notre Dame. Cedarville had to win their last two to get into the playoffs. Notre Dame's been pretty comfortably in throughout the year because of their hot start and that really good win over Fisher Catholic as well. Luke Cassidy, the Titans, tall task. From what I've been informed, it's going to be the last high school football game in the current version of Spartan Stadium.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
sounds like they're going to be getting some renovations with the Shawnee State purchase there. So I think Notre Dame likely will be playing elsewhere for the foreseeable future. Could see some fireworks there for the last matchup there at Spartan Stadium on Friday night. And then the last team in there, the 4 seed Eastern Pike, they will host the winner of Cincinnati College Prep and Fort Recovery in week 12. That's Cincinnati College Prep did lose to Cedarville. Fort Recovery coming out of just an unbelievable area for football. So it's not going to be the easiest task for Eastern Pike, but I'm not sure either of those teams have seen an offensive explosion that Eastern Pike can put on teams. So that's going to be an interesting one in week 12. And Fort Recovery, if they're going to go to Beaver, that is a heck of a trip.
That is, and again,
Yeah.
that Eastern offensive line,
Yeah.
that'll be the X factor and all of it. Obviously, the skill kids are very talented, but their ability to win in the trenches is going to make them just travel quite well, or in this case, host quite well
Yes.
in the postseason.
Yeah, so moving to our game of the week, we just kind of covered it in very short form. Be Zane Trace at Lucasville Valley. It's going to be live here on the SOSA YouTube page. Two really, really good running teams that play quality defense, have a really good line, and some really good running backs as well.
Yeah, no question. I talk about traveling well into the playoffs. I think for Zane Trace and watching them play, when they're at their best, they're taking care of the football and they avoid the pre-snap penalties and some of those different things. They play a brand of football that as the weather starts to turn, will give them a chance. They have some experience. They have good line play. They have outstanding running backs. They're physical on defense. They can tackle at a lot of different places throughout their unit. They're solid in the special teams. Um, so I think it gives them a great chance. Also, seeing Valley, Valley's had some up and down adversity. Good to see them back healthy.
Mhm.
Full. So I think it's just going to be a terrific game. I I actually watched the film of that. I know you said you'd seen this.
Yeah,
I actually watched the film of that. And that's a long time ago. These teams are a
yeah.
lot different, but it gives you an idea of the matchup. I think it's a true 7-10 type of matchup.
Mhm.
I expect a really, really competitive football game, and it's going to come down to those basic things we just talked about at the Nelsonville Athens game the other night. Take care of the football, avoid the penalties. The other night, Piketon went to the locker room with like 105 yards of penalties or whatever in the first half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have to avoid those things. So like the team that can do that will be the one that comes out on top because I would be shocked if one of these teams would end up running away from the other one. I really expect a tight football game going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I do as well. I think this is going to be a game where you're going to see this is going to be some hard hitting
Yes.
because you're going to see the ball A lot of running in the game now. You mentioned the weather. This could be one where hard hitting with possibility of rain could cause some loose balls as
Yeah.
well. So, um, it's going to be a really fun matchup. I think that McNeil being back for Valley, and I believe he's pretty much just defensive at this point. But having that as an option makes them. Does it say rain every day,
Well, I
or
mean,
is that the
throughout
only
the
day it
week,
doesn't?
now keep in mind with the turf and stuff. So on Friday, as of now, high of 50 through 2. So as you get into you're getting into the 40s down around game time. Um, by the time you get down in the game, your feels like temperature is going to be lower 40s, maybe even upper 30s. So that's way colder than it's been any other
Yeah.
Friday night. So again, ball security and some of those things you're talking about could really be a factor.
Yeah, and man, that's going to be fun. You've got two of the better running backs
Yeah.
in the area. You got Bryce Johnson for Zane Trace, Anthony Aaron for Lucasville Valley. I think quarterback play could
Then you
be
throw in Higgins and
yeah,
McNeil, and you get some different guys there. I mean, it's
yeah. Quarterback play is going to be really interesting in this one. I think Valley may have more depth at wide receiver, but they just don't throw the ball very much.
yeah,
So you don't see them a whole lot. McCullough is what we've seen throughout his 3 sports, he's a winner.
yeah,
And, he hasn't had to make a whole lot of plays through the air, but he's tough to bring down in the running
yeah,
game. He makes good decisions. And then overall, he does have a couple big play guys, in Higgins and Stewart on
yeah.
the outside. And that's not even mentioning,
Hartley's out
yeah,
there.
Hartley has had some really big plays for them this year as well.
If you agree with this, like I've said all year long, the Zane Trace offensive attack is a unique one from the standpoint of they run the ball at such a high level. They want to possess the ball. They want to run the
Mm,
ball, right?
yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to waste downs by trying to throw it and get yourself out of the yard down and distance that you
Mm,
want to be in. So the only time I've ever really seen Zane Trace have to throw it, it's because they must throw it on every down because they got behind or whatever.
mm,
I still think it's a team that when they strategically choose when they want to throw it and how they want to throw it, very capable of throwing it. Just because they don't throw it doesn't mean they can't.
right.
So I think that's something to keep an eye on Friday night. You know they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. But are there some times where McCullough could pull it back, get the ball outside, maybe even get the ball downfield? Not a lot, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But maybe 10, 11, 12 times throughout the night, just to add enough balance to maybe get some people out of the box. That'll be something to look at because again, I think you get into the postseason, sometimes it's that one unexpected thing that happens that swings the momentum. That would be something I would look at because again, Valley outstanding on special
Mhm.
teams. Obviously, with the ability to kick, that could be an X factor as well.
Yeah, I think that really could be the biggest difference in the game because,
The name escapes me right now.
Bender.
Bender.
Yep,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, Jaden Bender's been outstanding
Yeah.
for them.
Really good.
Yeah, so they're a team that, it's just it's if they get themselves into a position to kick, they're in a good spot, but also, they've done it at a high level, so they have a good snap, good hold, and it can get them some points where a lot of teams may not. But also, when it's going to be that cold, that could make things a little more difficult in the kicking game as well, because that's something we haven't really talked about. Um, but you're going to see some really good line play
Yeah.
in the matchup. Nolan Barnett is a big one for Lucasville Valley, and then you got Brower and Euler
Yeah.
for Zane Trace, and it's man, it's I just feel like this is going to be a really fun matchup. You of course are going to have a great time calling it. I'm sure Kenneth's going to be pumped to be down there since he missed the first one. So yeah, I think this one's going to be a really fun matchup, and you got two teams that are pretty like minded in how they play with some outstanding athletes all over the field as well. Because you got like a Conaway for Valley that can really do a lot of things as a wide receiver. It should be fun.
It
I
will
mean,
be.
it's
I'm looking forward
I
to it.
might be watching it here in the office where it's not going to be
Now,
43
you guys
degrees.
still gonna do the show this
We
week,
are
sir?
still going to
Yep.
do the show this week. We will see. We may do some interesting stuff with some guests. Had a couple coaches that, like Coach Song from Amanda, their game when anytime there's over 100 points scored, I think it's going to take a while. So by the time he was even getting back to service, it was going to be like it was going to be like 11:30, and we were going to be stretching to get to 11:20 with content at that time. But had some coaches said they would call in, and we'll kind of see on coaches with buys, and maybe we'll have some in studio guests. We'll kind of see. We may talk to some. If we got people that are playing in the regional final on Saturday or Sunday, maybe we can talk to a couple coaches in different sports as well. So, um, yeah, so check out the Coaches Call On show after what should be a really fun matchup on Friday night. Zane Trace at Lucasville Valley, going to be a big one in week 11.
Yeah, no question. And so I think we picked a good one, and we'll wait and see. But um, teams I'm familiar with, but I'll definitely be studying up and getting ready to go for incredible volleyball, then football, and then back to volleyball.
Yeah, um, should be a really fun week. It's going to be a really fun week. We've got some outstanding games that we're going to be covering. We got at least 4 live streams. It could end up being 5, just depending on what happens volleyball wise. So we'll kind of see with that. So make sure you hang with us in that aspect. We're going to have a lot of soccer and volleyball coverage throughout the different matchups throughout the week as well. But getting to our main headline of the week, name, image, likeness. It's been taking over college sports for the last couple of years. Sounds like it's coming to Ohio. There's going to be the OHSA is putting out an emergency bylaw that is going to allow NIL in Ohio schools. There's been, I believe, someone like pushed for a temporary restraining order, and it was done. So I think they have like 45 days to figure it out before that restraining order comes in. Because I know it starts with a player from Huber Heights, Wayne, who's one of the top wide receivers in the country. Gonna be going to Ohio State, and I don't know if it's an Ohio State is kinda helping push towards this or not, like, trying to keep the players in Ohio because 'cause there's been talk of players from big cities are going to different places to play. I know girls basketball this year, we've talked about, me and Jeff Miller have talked off the air about the Miss Ohio or Miss Basketball in Ohio because it's for players that play at OHSA schools. The the top 2 players in the state aren't playing it for OHSA schools. They're not playing for state championships this year. They're playing one had left the state, came back, and now they're playing at Spire Academy. So probably some money going there. You know, we're going to discuss this and we're going to kind of talk about different things. It's a very sensitive topic because we're one of 6 states, which to me is crazy. We're one of 6 states that doesn't have NIL in place in high school. And I just wonder if the OHSA looked at what some of those other states were doing as well. So one of the things, or I'll go over what the schools are going to be voting on. And we haven't talked to it. I don't think you may have because you are actually in admin. I'm in hanging around, uh, and um, just what the OHA put out. So the way we talked early in the week was kind of like we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know, like, is it going to be like the Wild West, whatever. But it sounds like the OHA probably looked at what some other states are doing, and that's kind of how they came around on this. So Ohio would have you cannot use if an athlete has some sort of branding deal, they cannot use their school's logo or any school's logo in the state. So of an OHSA school, so you can't use that. So you can get. I said Shaq on the air, but I think it was when Grant Hill went to the Orlando Magic and he was doing Fila, and they weren't able to use like the Magic logo because they were like a Reebok uh, or Nike uh, a Nike team, and like they just had this horrible knockoff jersey. We could see some of that. So can't use the OHSA schools logos, anything like that for any of these branding deals, which I think like local businesses could probably figure out a way to do that a lot easier. Um, but there's no branding deals that can be done during school hours. You cannot, this one's, yeah, this one, whatever. You can't induce a student to a specific school through a branding deal. That's, yeah, we'll see. Um, we'll see how people word that one. That one, to me, that's probably the biggest issue. Um, Schools may not arrange deals on behalf of students. That kind of goes to that last one of like, hey, I can't do it, but Bobby's Garage over there, they might try to get you to Columbus.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try not to say any specific places, um, but I'm gonna throw everything towards the big city. We're gonna say throw it towards the big city right now to make sure anything like that. And then students, if they get some sort of branding deal, they must notify the OSA within 14 days within 14 days of a deal taking place, or they'll miss up to 20% of the season. So I don't know if that's like, hey, I'm gonna start getting paid on the 28th. You gotta tell them by the 14th, or hey, I got this deal on the 14th. You gotta tell them by the 28th. I didn't understand the wording of that one, but that's kind of what the OHSA has thrown out. Uh, this is a tough topic. So, what are your immediate thoughts on this?
I understand first where the state's coming from. When you
Mhm.
say, we're one of 6 states that don't have it, like, I think what happens is, on the surface, as an educator, as a high school coach, I mean, you're talking to someone who wasn't a real big fan of it at the college
Yeah.
level, so, like, you can imagine what I think about it on the surface at the high school level, not a big fan of it. But again, as I said in the opening, it's just our world's changing, and you got to try to at least be open minded and understand if you're going to work with kids, you better at least try to educate yourself on
Mhm.
what's going on here. And I understand where the state's coming from. Of if all we do is wash our hands of it much longer, we have no control. Everything just goes crazy. It's kind of what the
Yeah.
NCAA did at first, if you remember, and it kind of went
Yeah.
crazy. So you're talking to someone who's spent an entire career on leading kids where structure, rules, procedures are an absolute must. I mean, I know how hard just administering a day is, day in, day out with staff and students just at a small school. I can't imagine if just all of a sudden you just go do whatever you want. When the bell rings, just kind of, if you want to go to class, go ahead and go. If not, just go.
Mhm.
There has to be some guidelines.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, I appreciate that the state is trying to come out in front of it and
Mhm.
say, hey, here's some guidelines that we could put in place. Are they going to be perfect? Are we going to be 100%, perfect and enforcing and doing all these things? No, you aren't. I would argue you're not with any of
Right.
it, but it gives you a chance to go. So I know there's a lot to unpack, but I wanted to answer that part of it first. Is I appreciate that the state is trying rather than just ignoring the problem and hoping it's going, it's
Mhm.
not, knowing that it's not going to go away. I appreciate that they're at least coming out. As administrators, we have been in meetings and we tried to talk about the different things. But again, understand when your administrator votes a yes or no, when they're voting yes, it doesn't mean that they agree that NIL belongs in high school sport. It means that they agree that before we just let a bunch of court systems decide in the favor of the athlete
Mhm.
in the years to come, because that seems to be the precedent,
Yeah.
that we're going to vote, if they vote yes, going to vote yes to give the state a chance to at least put some guidelines in place. So I hope I'm
Mhm.
clarifying that
Right.
correctly, because I think the misconception, John, is like, well, why in the world would a principal think that's good for high school sport? That's not what they're saying. They're saying that they think it's good that we just absolutely have a puncher's chance to control this with a few guidelines that you just read off there.
Mm. Yeah, and I think it's coming one way or the other.
Yes.
So if the schools vote yes on this, it helps the schools and the state control it. If it doesn't, if they vote no, then it can go into the court's hands, which who knows what happens then? Because that's kind of what happened with the NCAA. And you want to make sure you have, like with these guidelines, well, I'm not sure how easily they can be controlled. At least with these guidelines, at least there's something there. There's some sort of guidelines because, for, it's going to be hard to, now I guess with the cell phone policy that's coming, or it has came with certain places.
Already here.
Yeah, already here. It's going to be harder for branding deals to be done during school, allegedly. We'll see on that. But I like that because then you're focusing on the academics, which is what student athletes are. But we'll kind of see on that now. The OSA school logos, I get that as well. I understand that because that's you can things can be spun different ways, and it may not benefit a school. Or let's say if the kid leaves, then some different things can happen there. So I understand that one now. Can't induce a student to a specific school, and a school cannot arrange deals on behalf of the student. I think those ones are going to be the hardest ones to get. But I like that the OHSA is still putting out things where they could still maybe take care of some of the transfers stuff, because that's, to me, that's the worst part of the college NIL situation right now, is the fact that you're seeing guys play for like 5 or 6 different schools in their time. So if you're bouncing around all over the place, then it's hard to build a program, and then it just can kind of get kind of ugly with how it is, and then who knows where uh, Billy Joe's going next.
Right.
So I do think that's something that I think it's important to try to take care of the transfer issue. I think people are gonna, people have always been creative about it, but we'll kind of see on that. I get, I get it. I was trying to be like, I was gonna be like, oh, I'm big time for, and I just don't know in our area, especially. I don't know in our area if there's that much. Now the bigger cities, I get it. I can see how a college would maybe try to get,
Yeah.
there might have been rumor of a player from Cincinnati that was going to Cincinnati, might have gotten a bump in their NIL deal to stay playing in Cincinnati last year,
Yeah.
in their last year of high school basketball. So we've heard about that for a while anyway with the colleges. Now we'll see how it's done. Now I'm sure those 2 players I mentioned on the girls basketball side that are going up to play at Spire, their schools that they're going to might have said, "Hey, we want you to play at a basketball factory."
Yeah.
And I do think that could kind of swing it a little bit, and maybe for those kids, they're getting paid off of their what they're going to be able to do for their schools. But I just don't know how, I don't know how it's going to benefit high school sports.
There's again, there's so much to unpack here. So, number one, as this starts to come into play, kids are becoming more, are being given more and more power as time goes
Mhm.
on here. That's fine, except I think we'd all agree that a lot of times a 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old's not ready for that. So the adult leadership in their life,
There's I'm 41. I'm not sure I'm ready for it.
yeah, so the
So
adult leadership in their life is crucial. Hopefully that comes from parents, but if not, maybe it's coming from your schools and coming from different things. A lot of times what happens is the OHSA puts things out there, and I know they get hammered for not following through and punishing this, punishing this, punishing this. Really, if you think across the Ohio, do you know how many high schools there are? Probably
I
800
think
or
it's
something like that.
800.
Yeah, so like the idea that they're going to go around and police and check them all or whatever is probably not
Mhm.
realistic. The idea of high school sports, you're a member school of the OHSA. The idea is that your principal, that your superintendent, that your athletic director, that your coaches all, go. They put certain rules in on the pitch count. They put certain in baseball. They put certain rules in on quarters in a
Mhm.
lot of sports. They put, and they are and from an integrity standpoint, they are hoping that schools will say, "Oh, this is the rule. I'm going to play this kid this many quarters."
Mhm.
And after a while, if that doesn't happen, yeah, there could be investigations, there could be different things or whatever. Same way here. They're trying to put guidelines in, and kids are going to have a unique availability to some resources that they've never had before. Well, again, you hope that they have the proper adult leadership in their life, even if they're an elite athlete or just a regular high school athlete or whatever it is, to make some of these choices. The other thing I would say is we live in a world sometimes when something isn't 100% bulletproof, we have a way of just kind of thinking it's terrible. And I
Mhm.
don't know that that's fair. I mean, you go out on the highway and the speed limit's 55 and someone gets pulled over for going 60, say, 8 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Well, they probably weren't the only one speeding. That's the one they got.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And then
Mhm.
after a while, you hope, okay, well, man, they're pulling people over. Maybe I don't speed.
Mhm.
You get what I'm saying
Mhm.
there? It's not like they go out and they get every single person that breaks the speed.
Right.
It's That's what makes this impossible to police. So when you're sitting there and you're reading those guidelines, I know the tendency is to say, well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. Well, it's not going to work, but it's certainly better to know that you hopefully do have some integrity throughout your administrations out there. You do have some people educating people. You hope this is going to lead to more people starting to educate teenagers on, okay, here's what's out there, here's what's bad, here's what's good, this is where it can benefit you, this is where you can help you get to the next level. Again, I'm trying to be open-minded to some of those things, but I can't express how important it is if you're going to be in education, if you're going to be in coaching, that you educate yourself. It was taught to me a long time ago by my mentors saying, Shane, if you're going to go for 30 years, you're probably going to have to be willing to adapt and change. You're going to go through some dynamic changes that you can't even fathom right now. Right. Well,
Mm.
25
Yeah.
years ago, I'd have never even crossed my mind
Right.
that I'd be sitting here. But I also can appreciate that over the last 4 or 5 years of my career, I knew it was about time for me to step away. You know what I mean? Because I could tell that it was starting to pass me up a little bit and do some
Mhm.
different things. It just wasn't for me. Not the X's and O's, not the strategies, not the different things, but just the stuff that
Mhm.
goes around it. Okay. So I can appreciate if you're a young coach out there now and you're planning on doing this, you've got to educate yourself on it. You got to be aware of it, and you hope that relationships can still be powerful. You hope that you can still get kids to buy into, the young lady from McLean who had given the interview that we
Right.
talked about in the soccer. You hope that there can still be in Southeast Ohio, especially, a meaningful connection to your community, a meaningful connect. I said for the longest time, in today's time, it makes me sad because I don't know if being a McLean Tiger or a Southwestern Jeep or an Alexander Spartan or, or a Trimble Tomcat, it means the same thing as it
Mhm.
meant 20 years ago. And I hope I don't offend people by saying that's just the way I feel.
Right.
But like this can attack the very, very foundation of that. And that's what I hope that we can still find small communities not to get fractured or fall apart through all this because I just don't want to see high school sports turn into, and again, no offense here, I'm just talking high school
Mhm.
sports. I don't want to see high school sports turn into club volleyball. I don't want to see high school turn into AAU basketball or Legion baseball. I don't. Those things are fine. I love high school sports.
Mhm.
I mean, I love high school community. I love high school pride. I love high school atmospheres. And I hope that this stuff doesn't end up robbing us of that into the next generation.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Now there's a few things where I'll just throw out there, but like when you mentioned those, you don't want to see things get fractured amongst community, and that's where sometimes you get players pulled to the bigger city,
Yeah,
the bigger, and now that could always come to, hey, well, you got to come here for to get more looks, get more eyeballs on you. But a lot of that stuff happens in the off season anyway. So
sure, sure.
um, I want it to be where a player can come through and while they're in their community, they can still get the same opportunities to play at that next level without having to think that they had to go elsewhere. And my worry is that not only will they think they have to go elsewhere, which would rob Southeast Ohio of a lot of really good athletes, but they're also being drawn there financially.
Right.
Because to me, one of the things on this is I don't know how much money athletic departments are making, like especially in the Southeast. I don't know how much people think they're making off of these student athletes because it's almost all towards tickets because you're not selling you're not selling a jersey of a player. You're not making like it's not like you're doing that like you're doing in college, where Ohio State Buckeyes they might sell the number 4 jersey for Jeremiah Smith, like Caleb Downs number 2 jersey. They may sell those. That makes sense to me on why those players are getting that. So I don't know how much money is there to even have for the players,
Right.
because a lot of athletes, especially in the Southeast, because Southeast very rural, not really,
Sure.
it there can be areas that are hard hit on financially. So if athletes can get help, we're all in education because we want to see kids have the best chance, have the most chance to be successful. So if this is a way for a kid to get into a better life situation, none of us are going to be against that. But we don't want people to convince them that a better way to help your family is to move to Columbus and move to this school because then you're going to be able to go do this, this, and this, and we're going to give you this much money to do it. That's my worry on it because there are a lot of students that athletics can help their family into different situations, but I just don't know if high school NIL is the way to do it, especially in the Southeast and in most of Ohio anyway. Because I don't know. To me, when a school sells T-shirts, like these schools that just won district championships, Sweet 16, you get the Sweet 16 shirts.
Yeah.
The school's selling them. It's selling them on the school. You're not selling them on the player. So
Right.
I don't know how that money is going to get to those people anyway to
Right.
to help. So to me, that's where I don't see the overall benefit of it because I don't think I just don't think there's that much money. Maybe I'm naive in that. I don't know.
But the part that's so confusing to me is because over the years, John, it's like, okay, so, and man, I hate using examples, but
Yeah.
I think people understand we're just trying to have a discussion here. I'll just use the team that we're going to string. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say Adina, and let's say Union Local, and Wheelersburg and New Lex. They win district championship. They have Sweet 16 jerseys. Okay, so they're selling those. Those are some passionate fan bases,
Yeah.
right? I bet they sell a bunch.
Yeah.
So they sell a bunch, and maybe it's to your boosters, maybe it's to your athletic program, maybe a little bit of both, and that money goes in. I bet you there's a good chance that a lot of that money is going back into the volleyball
Right.
program. That's the point,
Yeah.
right? You want to go back in the volleyball program. Maybe you're going to stop and feed them on the bus ride,
Mhm.
just kind of as a kind of
Yeah.
a celebration. Maybe you're going to get them some new equipment for next year. Maybe you are going to buy the team some extra travel gear out of it. Okay?
Mhm.
But it's a team wide program thing.
Right.
What's bizarre about that is to think of a scenario where no matter how good she is to say, well, Katie Burns and Kimmy Dalton will get a travel gear, but no one else will.
Right.
And again,
Yeah.
I'm just using an example
Yeah.
because everything I've ever looked at through school has been, oh, that is, it puts
Mhm.
money back in. You make the combo, you sell your pre-sale
Mhm.
tickets. These teams going to the playoff, they're going to sell some pre-sale tickets.
Mm.
All of these different things make some money for your athletic program. Yes, the football team might make some money that might end up helping get golf shirts for the golf team next year.
Mhm.
You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? That makes total sense to me because that's how it's always been.
Mm.
But to think that it's just going to somehow all of a sudden become an individual
Mhm.
type of deal, that's where it gets really, really confusing for me. And I think you're right. A lot of those bigger things could probably start to come and draw from bigger cities and
Mm.
bigger schools. And you're probably onto something there. And I don't know that there's anything we can do about that. I mean, I know we don't love it. All we can do, I think, is continue to try to have really, really positive experiences in high school. Make your programs desirable. Yeah, and again, that may look different here
Right.
in 5, 10 years. I still don't know even what that looks like. And then hope that kids want to be a part of that. But again, I go back to something I said earlier. And I hope kids just aren't blatantly making these decisions for themselves, 13, 14,
Right.
15 years old. I pray that we have adults, parents, family members, coaches, that are really, really involved in educating our kids and keeping big picture in mind. I understand every now and then you come across the special athlete who
Mhm.
has a chance to go on to the Division 1 level and do something, and that's awesome. Okay,
Mhm.
we have right off the top of my head, we have about 6, 7, 8 of those kids in some running sports, football, different things, just right here in the fall,
Yeah.
right? But that's not the norm.
Right.
So the norm is kids getting an education, then kids going to college or a trade school and getting prepared for adult life. And that's
Mm.
where I really, really hope that we have people helping these kids and educating them on making.
Yeah. Now, for me, I could see something a team wise if you're going to do, like you mentioned, a couple individuals like certain things. It would almost have to be like those old Bulls shirts that had like the big headed players on them and
Yeah,
stuff like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe you could do
yeah.
some cool stuff with that. And like to me, that's like the only way to do anything through the through getting off of a player's likeness because now I can see like uh an advertiser maybe being
Right.
like, "Hey, I want to use this person in a commercial." Like I can see
Well, you
that.
get these shirts that'll list their names on them. You'll
Right?
see those
Yeah.
all the time. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the name and the image is out there. You're right.
Mm.
Sometimes the sponsorship may get involved, but it's always been giving the group
Yes.
the money. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? The part that we're gonna have a hard time, especially in the small school setting, is starting to wrap our mind around what this looks like to an individual athlete. And to me, at a high school level, that's just a scary, scary thought.
And then I wrote down two words. Something that the whole family could probably use as well. And I don't know if schools hit on it as much. So I would have liked to have seen financial literacy being mentioned anywhere in this because
Interesting.
I've mentioned before, I'm 41. I don't know anything about money. Like I'm horrible with it. Like, so I feel like this would be
And it's not because you have so much of it, you just don't know what to do.
exactly.
Right, right.
Um, like financial literacy is something that people don't understand. And
Yeah.
it's hard for schools to teach that now. So I think that's something that's somehow going to have to be tied into this somehow to help people understand the value of money and how to use it and families as well because if Tommy Joe's being I just keep using Joe as the middle name, but Tommy Joe's being out offered certain money from Columbus to go play there. Well, does it make sense? Does it make sense to uproot your family
Right.
to go there? So for the family to get financial literacy help would also be important on this because I know there's some families that are just that don't make full wholehearted decisions without being kind of reckless on certain things. So I think financial literacy is something that really people have to value because it's something that um, across our culture now, generationally, is something that's not really there.
Well, I love that point because one of the biggest things from the first half of my career to the second half of my career is how much it cost, both money and time wise, just to be allowed to coach,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, think about if you're not familiar with this, I mean, our coaches out there listening certainly are. I mean, it probably from the foundation level, I don't think I'm stretching it too far when I say it probably takes anywhere from 5 to 10 hours and about $250 just to get prepared to coach. Is that
Mhm.
fair?
Yeah.
So you can bet that the next class, remember it was the concussion course, and then it
Mhm.
was this, and then it was this, and then it was this,
Yep.
then it was the fundamentals of coaching, and then it was the rules interpret,
Mhm.
and then it was I can promise you that there's going to be stuff in the NIL concept and in the financial concept. The point you're making, I would like to see that even stretch out a little bit more
Mhm.
for our kids and for really our families as they get into high school
Mm.
sports.
Yeah, so it's something that I think it is important, and it's something that coaches need to know as well. And you've mentioned we kind of talked about like how are coaches going to be impacted in this because financially as a coach if you touch money, like you
Yeah,
gotta that stuff's gotta go elsewhere
yeah,
immediately because of how much everything's being watched anyway now. And probably for the best because I don't want to sit on a check for
no.
a weekend or anything. So
That's a great point too, because as a coach, it always made me nervous in fundraising and different things when I had to be any level of middleman. And what's happened now with a lot of fundraisers, they've taken that out of it. That's
mm,
why you do it online and it
hmm
goes here, and that's why you don't make it as all your percentage of fundraiser stuff because of that. Anytime over the years someone was wanting to hand me money and stuff, and luckily I haven't had to do that in the last several years because as times continue to change,
right.
I don't do it. But man, you'd get to your treasurer as quick as you could and say, hey, so and so wanted to donate this, right here it is, here's the check. I mean, just makes you nervous to even handle it. So you're right. Coaches have to educate themselves so much on this, and they've got to understand you can't hide from it. You got to educate yourself on it and know what is your role. So I think so far right now we don't know, you know what I
Right.
mean? But what is your role in all this, and how can you go about getting it? Because the one thing I did have in my notes, John, is we have had forms of this, but again, it's always been through the concept of high school sports being nonprofit and those types of things. You go to a team camp,
hmm
the, a business might help, donate
Right.
some money to the basketball program. Well, then maybe you use that money to go to team camp for travel or for different things. But again, it's always been kind of in a team concept, or even though it might cover a particular kid, that donation was never for a kid. You see what I'm
hmm
saying? So we've had some foundations of this, but I do think it's going to be interesting to see what the coaching role is going to be, and then how the treasurer offices, treasurer's department in schools,
hmm
as well as boosters. Because let's face it, there's some boosters out there that are incredible and they rake it in. I
Yeah.
mean, like there's a lot of money floating around out there. I think it's important that schools have a plan on how they're going to conduct business, and that everybody's got to be on the same page.
So with schools not being directly involved in this, so schools not being directly I'll throw the quotes up
Okay.
on that. So that was one of my initial thoughts was like facilities. We talked about that the other day. Sounds like that doesn't schools aren't gonna have anything. So like upgrades should still be going the way they would be going
Yep.
because all this stuff sounds like it's allegedly gonna be outside businesses and whatnot. Transfer rules are kind of covered. How's the media gonna be impacted in this? Like are we gonna be charged for an interview with somebody, or does someone have an agent, that's running their stuff? Because, that's one of the cool things we're able to do. Other companies do it as well. The post-game interviews, and you get some really cool reactions like the prior
Right.
girl.
Yeah.
Are we gonna be able to have that same, or are we gonna be talking to coaches every game?
That I don't
Yeah.
know. And again, I feel like in those moments that would just be normal business. Now, if you get into some features and you get into some different access
Mhm.
and you get into some different things, maybe. But I think in the normal game coverage of, you know, asking permission, because a lot of times, and I know you do a good job of this too, a lot of times I'll never ever go talk to a kid, but if I don't know that coach and haven't asked that coach, like, coach, you okay
Yeah.
to me grad? You know what I mean? Like, out of respect to that coach, I always be like, hey, coach, are you okay if I talk to this kid? He's doing it, and that way you have that connection to the program or
Mhm.
whatever. So in that sense, I don't see that,
Right.
but I could see certain things when you start to get into more publications or more features or more things
Mhm.
beyond the normal covering of games.
Mhm.
I could see there's some different things. I did a when I worked for Great Seal Sports Magazine before it went just to Great Seal. It was Great Seal Sports, it's a
Right.
separate one. I did an article on the outstanding player from Chillicothe, Oscar Brown, and went on to
Mm.
play at Rutgers. Did an article, and I know then there was a director of basketball operations that was reaching out because again, at that level, it was just so commonplace to
Mhm.
try to get them a little bit of compensation
Right.
for there. So it was, but that's what we're talking about there, maybe in a more feature time or
Mhm.
more of donation of their time or different things like
Yeah.
that. And then obviously that magazine, what they're saying is that magazine is then making some some you know growth off of
Right.
her name, image, and
Yeah.
likeness. Um, so I get that. So I don't know what that line is, but I would think on the normal game coverage and the normal stuff like that, I don't see where that comes from.
Right. I wasn't really thinking that in a lot of ways as well. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
throw that out there. Yeah, there's. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be things that people are going to think of if they want us to talk about them.
I would like to hear from
Yeah.
them. You know what I mean? I would really like to just hear, like anything, I'd like to hear intelligent comments, but I'll yeah,
Yeah.
like in terms of what are some of the concerns? I'd love to hear from parents. What are your concerns if you have a kid that's coming into the teenage years, getting ready to be a high school athlete? What are some of your concerns? What are your thoughts on this? Um, love to hear from some coaches.
Mhm.
You know, do what excites them about the opportunity, especially some of our young coaches. Because again, I'm old.
Yeah.
I hear this and I'm like, yeah. But I mean, maybe I would have reacted different when I was 25 than
Mhm.
I'm 48. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of neat conversation to be had moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're open to talking more about in the future. We went about 35 minutes on this right now, and I'm sure we could
Yeah,
go even
well,
further.
that's plenty
Now,
right now, but I would
now,
love to hear back.
now we definitely had like when we're just throwing out things the other day, me, you, and Kai in the office were like, thankfully they put out that press release. We're like,
Yeah,
okay, that narrows down things a lot, um, because it sounds like there's a good idea on how to navigate it. Not gonna be perfect, and we'll see how the schools feel on it, because it's gonna be that emergency vote, in November, I believe. So we may come back to this once basketball season starts. So,
and don't forget again, every single rule still comes down to the school's ability to execute it. I
it's
mean, I'm not listen, I've been negative on the OHSA on plenty of things. I've supported them on a bunch of things. I try to be fair. The one place I'll support them on is like, look, it's impossible for the group that they have together to police everything. They count on a lot of their member schools
Mhm.
and their administrating their leadership to do a lot of it. And then when they have to get involved, they get involved. And yes, they're going to get more involved sometimes when things draw more attention. That's just the way life
Mhm.
works.
Yeah, so it'll be definitely interesting to see how things will continue to grow through this process and what other news comes out in the future as well. So this week, a lot of regional games. I know we're going to have Thursday, our live stream, as we mentioned. Thursday, we're going to be Adena, Union Local, Wheelersburg, and New Lexington should be two outstanding matches over at Logan High School. Go out and watch the games. Like if you're a volleyball fan at all, go watch. If you're elsewhere, check out our streams though. Dewey and Shayne do a great job there. Um, then on Friday, we're going to be at Lucasville Valley. Zane Trace at Lucasville Valley. Saturday, more than likely, we'll have a regional final for volleyball somewhere as well on our live stream. Make sure you're following our writers as well, with Derek Webb, Brock Netter, myself, Carson Francis. We get out to a lot of stuff. Um, you know, Austin gets out and covers a lot of things as well for football. Does a good job there. Raymond Gleedle. If you're on Instagram and you don't follow Raymond Gleedle, like to see like the pictures he's putting out, he did Coach Carper did a really cool thing. Let him come along for the pregame the other day, and he was like, I was talking to him on Saturday. He's like, I'm never gonna look at Friday nights in football again. The same because he was at a big school with a big atmosphere, getting ready for a big game, and
Right.
yeah, so it was pretty cool to hear him talk about that,
I bet.
especially because he comes from a school that doesn't have
Right. Yeah,
football. So,
football. Yeah.
um, so make sure you follow him as well, and then you know, follow Kenneth Hay for basketball takes as well. So like sometimes because he's in his prime with the NBA. So we'll see there. So a lot of updates throughout the week. Make sure you are subscribed. This is way too late in the episode to say this. Make sure you're subscribing here, as well as probably Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you listen there. I think we're getting like a handful of people listening, which is, hey,
Takes time.
hey, and that's a handful more than might have heard us on YouTube. So
Yep.
we'll take it there. Coach's Calling Show on Friday nights at the after games, after our live stream is over. That may switch in basketball to make sure we're more available for different coaches to call in. So we'll see on that. But for at least the next couple of weeks, it will be on Friday nights. We're going to stay on Mondays for our show as well. So, you got anything else?
Yeah.
Be safe.
Good show.
Yeah, you're a lot of travel this
Yep.
week, so everybody be safe going out there. And then, as always, for Shayne Gold, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching SOSA Overtime, presented by